Peace. ATM Hotep, and welcome to Sesh to Seshu Mani Medew Netcher YouTube channel. This is your brother Wujau Meneb Edimaat, and we are live. All right, live out of the clear blue sky. But today is Sunday, June 20th, and it is Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there. Hope everyone has enjoyed themselves today. You know, it's pretty late on the East Coast. It's 10:24 Eastern Standard Time out here. So the whole day is gone. And, so hope everyone has enjoyed themselves and spend time with the family and all of that good stuff. Fathers, Father's Day is known to kind of get the short end of the stick. Us fathers, we may get a pair of socks or what else? A pair of socks, maybe a wallet. Let's see, what else? Some aftershave, little things like that. um, but hey, it's just about family and love and functioning as a good father, husband, brother, uncle, all of that good stuff. So anyway, happy Father's Day to everybody. And like I said, I hope everyone enjoy themselves. I said cologne. Yeah, Thai, cologne. You know. Oh, a grill. Well, hey, that's a come up actually. A grill. Come up. But all right, so peace. ETM Hotep, welcome again. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. So this is an open discussion, just kind of laid back, keep the series of open discussions going. We've had I think 5 now in the archive, and we've covered a few topics on each one, and it's been pretty good feedback, pretty good conversation, some good stuff. So just want to kind of hang out. And so if any of you all want to hang out, I'm gonna put the link right here in the chat and join the panel. And remember, it's BYOT. Bring your own topic. All right, bring your own topic, and we try to link it into Kemet in some form or fashion. And I always say, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about Twinkies and cupcakes and all of that good stuff. Well, something pertinent, like I kind of wanted to talk about, make sure everyone is still up to speed on the pandemic, and the vaccines and the virus and things, because I'm in these conversations just about every day, going, with people who are for, against vaccines, people who are for, against the existence of the virus and things like that. I kind of deal with that on a daily basis. So sometimes when I go live, I don't bring it up because I've already been through that for the day, I've already exhausted that. But, I don't know. So let me get this link out there. Give me 1 second. Okay, so here's the link. Oh, and actually I need to be able to pin this. All right, let's switch over here. Yeah, come join me on the panel. Otherwise, I'm going to morph into MC Ireland and I will turn into Father, Pastor, Minister, Wujau, and preach. Don't want to do that. All right, so there's the link. Come on and join the panel. Join the panel. Bring your own topic. BYOT. Bring your own topic. Bring your own topic. So, yeah, because we get recommended some topics. Now I know I am Sosa, and I don't see him in the chat, but I am Sosa has recommended us to talk about Akhenaten, and that's a good topic. So I'm gonna actually work on that. Pull out my notes so we can have, so we can have a good conversation about that. Haven't had a chance to yet. So if he's listening or if you check out the archive, yeah, I haven't forgotten. All right. But other than that, we've had some good conversations on here in the past few live sessions. I mean, actually, all of our conversations are good. So let me just start with that. All of our conversations are good. Every last one of them. There's no bad conversation on this channel. Period. No, we had some really interesting ones. We had even an after party conversation over on the Sorry Motep's channel. After our conversation. But so yeah, so anyway, welcome again. Trying to, buy time a little bit so people tune in. And again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And, celebrate family. It's about just celebrating family. And we had recently had Juneteenth went by yesterday, June 19th. And, Juneteenth has been an ongoing thing. And so now it's a little bit more attention than normal on it because it's been made into a federal holiday. And that's a discussion to have as well. And I've seen some people bring it up and kind of talk about Juneteenth itself, the history of it, but also, kind of revisiting that, but also the federal holiday aspect. But yeah, so that's a topic. But health, Unk Uja Seneb. Now you all should be familiar with that phrase, Unk Uja Seneb, because that's how so many people say it, Unk Uja Seneb, or Unk Weja Seneb. Unk meaning life, Weja or Uja meaning prosperity, and then Seneb meaning health. And so you may see it in the phrase, Dienek Unk Uja Seneb. I give you life, prosperity, and health. And so it's interesting that those three concepts are put into one, unified. Unk Uja Seneb. And so, thing about health, we tend to look at health as this thing over there, and we get it kind of backwards. We think about health when we get sick instead of thinking about health, outside of being sick. And we just have to be honest. We don't think about those things until something goes wrong, and that's kind of the default setting for a lot of us. That's how we operate. Out of sight, out of mind. But I'm gonna tell you, on those instances, because that's human nature, out of sight, out of mind, out of focus, in the periphery, our attention and our perception and our awareness, it has a certain scope, and things that fall outside of the scope, we don't pay attention to. That's a very natural thing. But here's the thing, your culture is supposed to back you up. And those things that go below the radar of conscious of perception and our awareness, those things that go below the radar, your culture is supposed to pick up the slack. And so health, we don't think about health because outside, out of sight, out of mind until something happens. But if we live in a culture where health was very, very important and incorporated into the things we did culturally and socially, then that would back us up. And so we don't have that too much. You go to the stores and everything. I mean, they're actually selling things that are harmful to us. Food is not really food. Processed, preserved food. Things that we know are just not good for us. We know you walk into the grocery store, especially a lot of grocery stores are, what do you call it? arranged where when you walk in the door, you got to go through the bakery section first. The bakery section. Now I don't know how this is for all grocery stores because like I've lived I'm on the East Coast and I'm in the South now, but I'm from DC. So grocery stores, we had Giant, Safeway, and I know down here in the South we have Kroger, Publix, Walmart, groceries. Um, and what else? What's another popular grocery store? Well, anyway, you go into these grocery stores, and when you go in, usually you'll see the bakery, all the bakes and everything, along with the fruit and vegetables. Um, they'll all be kind of together, but you can't help but to pass by the cinnamon buns, the whole thing of cakes that's already pre-sliced, the donuts, the all of that good stuff. It's just right there. It's not good for you. It's not good for you. Like I say, Donnie said the fruit, then the bakery. Yeah, it depends because it depends because I've seen where the bakery is first. You hit the bakery like staring you right in the face. Usually the fruit, vegetable, bakery, and then around the corner, the meat section. All right. Poultry and all that, the fresh meat, where you talk to the butcher, talk to the guy behind the counter. But anyway, health though. So health, we don't focus on it until something goes wrong. And so this is why I bring up the concept of Unc Ujah Saneb, because these things are like health is really life. Life is health. Because without a state of good health, you won't have life, or you won't live a prosperous life, and no matter how many things, material things you acquire and accumulate, if your health fails you, none of that matters. None of it matters. And so you would think that health would be at the forefront of pretty much everything we do. Everything should be connected to health. And we have two major branches of health. And I know I'm just sitting here talking. I told you all, if y'all don't come in here, I'm just gonna turn into Pastor Wujau, Minister Wujau, just start preaching. But so what was I saying? Yeah, health. um it being a lifestyle, everything should be linked to health. And so we have two major branches of health. I mean, it could be, split into duality as pretty much everything is. You have physiological health or issues, then you have psychological issues. And now we neglect health. And when we say health, when most people say health, what comes into people's minds is the physiological side, the physical body, your health, how you're feeling, and so on and so forth. Are you in pain? Do you have any conditions, diseases, and things like that? But it deals with the physical body. That's what most people think when you say health. And even in that, like I said before, we tend to neglect it until something goes wrong. It's out of sight, out of mind. We don't focus on stuff like that. So that's with that. But now imagine on the psychological side, your mind, your mentality, and everything. We don't even think about that regularly, let alone, it makes it worse for us to even try to balance the two sides, the physiological and psychological. So we neglect the physiological, which is right in front of us all the time. So the psychological is definitely going to get pushed way in the back. That's way in the back somewhere, up in the closet, in the garage, and storage, padlocked and everything. It's all the way tucked away. And we don't even have conversations or focus on psychological health, the state of people's psychology, mind, mental state, mental disorders, mental diseases, things. These are not part of our conversations. And I'm not saying no one talks about it, obviously we have a whole field of psychology and psychologists. But in terms of conversation and kind of make balancing out, it is definitely not balanced. It is definitely not balanced. We don't even talk about health enough, let alone mental health. And so there's a lot of conditions and things that go on the psychological side that we're not even aware of. We're not even aware of. Similarly to the physiological side, people could be in a condition, have a condition, but it's so um, dominant, it becomes normal, and we don't know that there's actually a problem. So same thing with mentality. But so we have to really, really, really get better at all these things. And so I'm saying that because I brought up vaccines and the virus and everything. One thing, I don't care if you are a person who don't even believe the virus exists, or you a person who's anti-vaccine, even if you do think the virus exists, or you're on the other side of those two things. It doesn't matter. What this pandemic has done has raised the level of awareness in the conversations and in people's minds about health. Because we have to be honest, prior to this pandemic, health was not on the tip of the tongue or in the mouths of people's conversation. It just wasn't. Not nowhere near this degree. And now obviously we have Dr. Sebi, the entire, Dr. Sebi community. We have vegans, vegetarians, that's always been there ongoing. And even, you can get into a niche, like I said, with Dr. Sebi, get more specific and stuff like that with all of those things. So we always had like a health area, but never to this extent, like how we see it now when people talk about it. Whether you for or against any of this stuff, it's just raised the level of awareness. So we should take advantage of that. How do we organize it? How do we eliminate the noise and see what's really good about all this and beneficial, and organize it in a way to where we can start to burn it into our lifestyle, our culture. When we get into those situations where health becomes out of sight, out of mind, we have that cultural backup, because we intentionally, laid a foundation there. And so this is how we can take advantage of this time while we're still dealing with the pandemic. All of last year, and now we're halfway through this year, and we're still in a pandemic. Pandemic officially started, I believe, February of 2020, March, when they officially announced it as a global pandemic. Maybe somebody can correct me. So we're over a year into all of that good stuff. And so let's just take advantage of this to learn about ourselves, and which kind of touches on this whole idea about knowledge of self that you hear in the so-called conscious community. Knowledge of self. Man, know thyself. Knowledge of self. Knowledge of self. You hear that all the time. And we when, even in scholarship, when we're trying to argue things and all this stuff, we will break our necks to research everything outside of self. We don't put nearly the same energy in trying to study us, like yourself. How does your body function? How do the systems in your body work? How do they work together? What does your body need? What are all, like, everybody should have a list of all of the nutrients that your body needs. Because think about it. You live with yourself 365 days a year, and you hope to, live a very long life. So there's nothing you could do about that. So you better get to know your apartment building, your home, where you're going to be for the rest of your life with yourself. So we have to learn, okay, how to take care of this body. And we don't tend to do that. Um, yeah, so we should have a notebook with all the nutrients. So let me ask a question. And I know there's a delay. Like I said, I put the link in here, so I was hoping somebody will come on and take the mic from me. But how many of you all in the chat or here in the panel so far, how many of you all have a list of all of the nutrients that your body needs? And if you don't, why not? Boy, you hear that? It's cricket.
Okay. Okay. No, no cricket. So I will answer. For myself, I do not have all the list of nutrients that my body needs, and that is because I do not know of all the nutrients that my body needs.
Okay. Yeah, right. So okay, now even though you spoke for yourself, you actually speak for a lot of us. A lot of us, we don't have a list of all the nutrients that our bodies need, because if we did, then from that list, we would find the best source for those nutrients. And then we would develop a regimen to provide it. And that would become our life. And that's what I'm saying. Health is a lifestyle. Like our lifestyle is supposed to be patterned after health. Like there's no distinction, there's no difference between life itself and health. They're like one and the same, you know. Um, and so, but these are the things, like, people will ask questions like this. We will ask the question, why don't they teach us how to start a business or own a business in school, but yet they teach us how to be good employees? Why don't they teach us to become entrepreneurs or employers, but they teach us to be employees and stuff? Like we'll ask questions like that. But I mean, and that's fine, but we don't like carry it over into the same situation with ourselves. Why isn't this part of our culture to where we already know these things? Why don't we know all of the nutrients that our bodies like? We'll learn about the four food groups or the pyramid and things, just enough to get by. Same thing with even what I said before about business, economics. You could take an economics class in high school, whatever. They'll give you the surface stuff, the shallow stuff. Same thing with health. Take a health class, the shallow stuff. The food groups, fruits, vegetables, um, and breads and all that kind of stuff. You learn that. You learn a little bit. So you could take home economics, learn how to cook a little bit, things around the house, all that good stuff. But like the science of it, in an organized way that actually is applicable, like we can actually utilize, you know. So I just find that interesting. And so it's like we are regulated. We have to eat. We're human beings. We have to eat. You don't eat, you're gonna die. It's just that simple. We metabolize. We're metabolic creatures, animals. We're warm blooded, and we need to eat. Um, we got to have a source of food, sustenance. And so we have to do that for our entire lives from the moment we're born, even before we're born, while we're in our mother's wombs, we're eating. Um, and so from birth until death, we have to eat. So you would think that that is very, very important to get to do that very well, do the best, be very good at it. And so it's just surprising it's not. So anyway, this pandemic just kind of brings all this stuff to to the surface. Like, man, you know, viruses, pathogens exist whether we like it or not. They exist, and a pathogen is any organism that can do harm. Basically, is a enemy and can cause sickness, conditions, death, or whatever the case is to the human. And so we got different kinds of pathogens, bacteria, viruses, and so on. And our bodies are very remarkable machine. Our bodies are constantly fighting a war. It's always in battle mode. It is always fighting. Every single day, every moment, it is fighting. It is fighting to live. And so health and even sickness, I did a post maybe 2 weeks ago now or whatever. And I was putting a different, sharing a different perspective on being sick. When people say I'm sick, you know, what most people mean when they're sick is actually the body is actually healing. Like what we're calling sickness or being sick is actually a a process undergoing of healing, because the sickness that we're trying to describe and label as sickness is really the symptoms or the body's response to an enemy, a pathogen of some sort, and it is fighting it. And so while it's at war, it increased this war, and we feel it, and we just describe it as sickness. But it's constantly doing that, constantly, because we're in an environment where we're ingesting and digesting pathogens, and so our bodies are made to do that. So here's the thing. So if we give our bodies every single thing it needs, provided with all the resources it needs, our bodies will do a very good job. Very good job. Now, obviously, our bodies can't handle everything. So there are things out there that will definitely overwhelm our body's defenses and that army, that military, that bodily military that we have. There are things out there it just does. But if we can provide our bodies every single thing it needs, it will do a wonderful job. Wonderful job. So you would think with that in mind that we would live in a culture where that is actually taught intentionally, it is structured, it is mapped out for us, and it becomes like just everyday thing, just like we learn other things in school. You would think that. So that list of all of the nutrients that our bodies need, we should have that. That should be, the norm. And then finding out the best sources for it. But that's not what's going on. That doesn't go on. And here we are. A lot of different agendas and motives are tied into that and into why that's not in place like that. you know. So anyway, I'm just going on and on and on. So listen, if you just jumped in, appreciate it. Just kind of hanging out, talking. As you see, as you can see, I'm running my mouth about health a bit. The link to come on the panel is pinned in the chat. So if you're in the chat and you want to chime in, click the link. It's pinned at the top now. So click the link, go on in here, share, give your thoughts or whatever the case is. Like I said, I'll morph right into pastor, minister Ujao. pull up to the pull up to the pull up to the podium real quick. Yes, indeed. So let me see who is speaking in the chat. So we got we got Thurman, Meredith. Woo, you're not anti-vaccine, right? Nope, I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm not. I am 100% pro informed decision. I advocate, push, share, encourage people to actually learn, get informed, learn how to discern, get informed about it, whatever. So, like I said before, I talk to people on both sides, both extremes at that, and people in the middle, almost on a daily basis. And so I've heard it all. I've heard arguments on both sides. I've heard it all. And I can honestly say this: every single person, without exception, who is against um all of this stuff, against the virus, against vaccines, and on that side of things, without exception, they are unable to support their stance or even their decisions with anything sound. And I mean, it may sound far-fetched, but I'm telling you just from my experience. I'm only speaking for myself. And I'm very objective. I'm open, I listen. But a lot of like vaccine hesitancy, um, and then the stance of the virus not being real, that super, I can't even say what do you call it, skeptic. It's beyond skepticism. It's in the extreme. All those people that are like that, they can't back up why they say what they say or anything. It's just simply parroting or repeating things that they saw in form of memes or some YouTube clips or whatever the case is. But they themselves, I mean, I give you an example. I can give you a lot of examples. But I'll just give you a quick one off the top of my head. I talked to a person and they're anti-vax. They say I'm never gonna get vaccinated. I'm not gonna do it, whatever the case is. And I say, well, why? And they say, um, because of the ingredients of the vaccine. So now my next follow-up question is gonna be, well, what are the ingredients? And do you know that they can't tell me? So like that's to me, that's a mental problem when people do that. I mean, and I'm that may be extreme to say that, but I'm just saying, if you've made a decision to conclude that you are against vaccines or a particular vaccine, and when you're asked why, you say ingredients, and then the person asks you, well, what are the ingredients or which one? What about them? And you can't give it, and I don't mean give it like memorize it and then list them and list all the technical terms of the ingredients and things like that. So, I'm not, not being in that sense, but I'm talking about can't even articulate anything about the ingredients, what's dangerous or whatever. But yet that's how they feel. That they've made their mind up. And I'm telling you, to me, that is a problem. That is a problem. And that's a real example. I've been in that situation, in that kind of conversation many times. Either the ingredients, which they can't talk about, then they say it's an experimental vaccine and things, as if to say that there was no full clinical trial, you know, which is the hallmark and standard of all of this stuff. The way that these trials are conducted, this double blind or blind placebo blind control trials, these trials that were done, and the data. And I asked them, I said, have you read the clinical trials? And the answer has been 100% without exception, no. And I'm like, well, how can you make a conclusion or make your mind up without even reading the data on the thing that you're talking about? And so I'm saying that right there that's a mental disorder. That's the only way I can describe it. And like I said, I tell y'all, I deal with these conversations practically every day. Practically every day. I've heard it all. I've heard it all. I think by now I've heard it all. Now I know how law and police officers feel when, a police officer, by the nature of the job, if you pull people over, you pull so many people over for speeding or for whatever traffic stuff. I mean, eventually you're going to hear all kinds of excuses, and then it'll just repeat, repeat, repeat. And you pretty much be like, I heard it all. Like, what you got for me? Okay, I pull you over. Can I see license, registration? But see, officer, what had happened was, and then everything that comes out of your mouth, they've heard already. Well, listen, that's how I feel about this vaccine talk and stuff. I really feel that way right now. It's been a year. I've been having these conversations for a year, because I deal with people in the health industry on a daily basis for some of the work that I do, technical work that I do. So I see both sides. I've heard arguments on both sides and everything all the time, and I've heard it all. I've heard it all the way from the virus is not real. I've heard the lipo nano. I'm not even lipo. They don't even say lipo. They say nanobot technology. They actually think that the vaccine has little tiny robots in it, and that's just amazing to me. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, that's the ingredient. They got robots. They're trying to program you. They got the robots in there and everything like that. Oh, it's gonna mess with your DNA. You're gonna grow a tail and stuff. Oh, they haven't done a long study. They don't know the long-term effects of the vaccine. They don't know the long-term effects of the vaccine. And I'm like, man, do you understand that you don't even know the long-term effects of any food that you eat at any given day? You don't know the long-term effects of it because food is perishable. Food has a shelf life. And so like, think about this. You go to the store, even if you go to the farmers markets and try to get the healthiest thing possible, that food was not always there for years. And that's what you want. You want it to be fresh, right? You want it to be super fresh. That means whatever it is a new thing, newly grown, newly whatever. Okay, if it's fresh. So it hasn't had time even to exist to have some long-term data for testing. So to me, that's just stupid when people say stuff like that, because everything that you eat, you don't know for that specific thing you ate, you don't know the long-term effects of it, because everything is in a batch. Think about this. And if you don't believe that, um, they sell certain things in the grocery store. Like grocery stores sell what they sell, and people buy what they sell. And they've been buying that stuff for years. Then all of a sudden, the same thing that you always buy, all of a sudden they have a recall on it. Why? Because it's a bad batch. Something happened to it. It got poisonous or whatever. E. coli or something happened to it. It's a contamination, and they have to take it off the shelf. And anybody who bought it, they tell people they put on the news, tell you to throw it away or whatever the case is. That's right. That right there is proof that even if you buy a certain item all the time, they didn't exist for years. Like each growth or each crop, each harvest, if it's fresh food or whatever the case is, it is what it is. So you don't have any long-term data for any of that. So for people to use that as an excuse about the vaccines, it's a contradiction in logic. You can't have one without the other. You can't do that. And then on top of that, here's another example. Something else that I hear all the time. I hear that the vaccine has not been approved. Well, the vaccines have not been approved. They're only in use based on EUA, emergency use authorization. So they're not approved. They're experimental. And listen, I'm telling y'all, I've been in these conversations. I've heard the conversations, and the quickest thing you could just say to just toss that in the trash is to ask people who say that, what regulatory body approves vaccines? So I'm gonna ask y'all in the chat, what regulatory body approves vaccines? I want to see somebody in the chat tell me. I'm in the United States, okay? So I'm only speaking about the United States. What regulatory body, agency, institution, whatever, what regulatory body gives the approval for vaccines? So, I know there's a delay. Okay, so Donnie hit it. The FDA. Exactly. The FDA. So now here's the reason why you ask that question to a person who says that. Because they say it's not approved. But the FDA will give the approval, right? So then you ask a follow-up question, say, okay, what regulatory body gives the emergency use authorization? Again, what regulatory body, institution, or whatever gives the emergency use authorization for vaccines? So I'm asking the chat again. What regulatory body gives the authorization for emergency use? What's that regulatory body? What is it? I know it's a delay, so hopefully y'all catch up to what I'm saying.
What's up with y'all?
Hey, Hotep.
What's up? What's going on? I got a question for you.
Okay. Hold up. Is it
I'll hold though.
is it different than what I'm saying right now?
Nah, it's in the same.
Okay, hold up. Let me just finish.
Direction.
Let me just finish that question because they answered. So in the chat, people have answered correctly. It's the FDA. Okay. So the FDA is the regulatory body that gives approvals for vaccines. And it's also the FDA that gives authorization for emergency use or emergency use authorizations. So it's the same regulatory body that governs both of those. And the reason why I asked that question and I'm pointing that out is because when people say what they're saying, when they say, oh, it's not approved, it's only in use, it's only been authorized, but it hasn't been approved. And that's the most silliest thing because I'm only speaking by the way that they're using it. Now, the difference between approval and emergency use authorization is clearly outlined on the FDA's website. The FDA has an entire article about emergency use authorization. What does it mean? How is it, how is it determined and the whole nine? And I'm telling you, these people that say those things, they do not read it. But the way that they use that, oh, it's not approved, it's only authorized. They use it and say that and claim that as if there's two totally different entities that's going to do that, that's going to do both of those things. As if that means something, and they don't understand what the emergency use authorization is for and why it comes about and why it is necessary prior to a full-on approval and things. But see, they use it in the sense that because it's not approved and it's only been authorized, that something's wrong with it. You see what I'm saying? When it's the same regulatory body that does both. And I'm telling you, for the life of me, the logic that people are using, or the lack of logic, is just off the chain. It's just off the chain. It's crazy. And like I said, I get into these conversations. And what's even more, what's funny, what's actually funny, is people will demonize the FDA. They don't trust the FDA. They'll demonize the FDA and all of this. But yet, if you open up anybody's refrigerator, you will see FDA approved products all in their house, all in their refrigerator, all on the dinner table, all in the pantry cabinet. FDA approved items. But yet, when you bring up vaccines and stuff like that, all of a sudden they do not trust the FDA. And if they had it their way, the FDA is the devil incarnate. But yet they'll tell you they don't like the FDA while eating an FDA approved product at the same time. And that's crazy. That is crazy. But anyway, go ahead. Zane, you want to say something?
Yeah. It's kind of like on the same way you saying like the FDA approving these foods and stuff. And basically I want you to imagine yourself as a anti-vaxxer. So I wanted to ask, the way that people, shoot down how to use to get rid of yourself. I mean, to get rid of the mucus in your system, right? Because that they say that causes all kinds. That's the main cause of all sicknesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, and then at the same time, in the same breath, they'll say that why would you need the vaccine when your body can create its own antibodies from the virus?
Right.
But wouldn't it be? As I'm reading this on Google, I see that it says the mucosal immune system actively transport large quantities of antibodies into all mucus secretions.
Yeah.
And these secreted antibodies help prevent infectious entry of many pathogens. Now, why would you attempt to get rid of all the mucus in your system? Isn't that the same way as just is that just like counteractive to like the antibodies?
Yeah. That's a fantasy. Mucus is not the cause of all disease. And that's a touchy subject among the Dr. Sebi community.
Yeah, Sabeites. Yeah.
Right. So Dr. Sebi was an advocate of mucus, that entire doctrine, demonized mucus, where the goal was to eliminate mucus, because it's believed that mucus is the cause of all diseases, and that the different names of all these diseases we have are really different iterations of mucus problems.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on where the mucus is. That's where the name of the disease
That's the name of the disease come from.
will come. Right.
Yeah.
So anybody's familiar with Dr. Sebi's work will have heard that before. That's the mantra among that community. Mucus is the cause of all disease.
Right.
And all you have to do is take a immunology 101 and immediately you would throw that in the trash. That the mucus, like our bodies need mucus, and it's not the cause of all disease at all, by far. So
and
that's
at the same time, that's where all their natural antibodies would be.
right. And then another thing equally as problematic is within that community is the whole alkaline doctrine. The moment that you take you actually learn about how the body works, and the pH levels of the human body, the blood, and all that kind of stuff, you will throw that mantra and doctrine in the trash. It's just that, I mean, some of these things are really, very basic. And so that's it. So you said for me to imagine myself to be an anti-vaxxer. Anti-vaxxers, if you look at the top 5 reasons why anti-vaxxers are anti-vaxxers, actually you can go to the top 10. Those things, those reasons why they're anti-vax, it really has nothing to stand on. Like all of them have been and can be refuted.
Yeah.
All the way from the vaccines cause autism, all the way to the ingredients, to vaccines having fetal tissues and stuff like that. All of that, everything. And for the past year, I've been doing that. I've been just sharing information to people who don't know, who just don't know, but they'll assume because they just simply believe what they see on social media and the memes and from quacks and all these other people.
Yeah, because their standpoint don't ever come from a actual science-based agency.
Nope, not that. But I'm saying they don't even take time out to read the data or anything. They don't, so I mean, you're dealing with people who like look at this contradictory logic. So prior to vaccines being available, period. So the vaccines only became available in November of last year, November, December. All right. Prior to that, the pandemic was on. People were dying, people were getting sick. All the cases, we were dealing with all the stats, the numbers, how many people have died of COVID-19. Now, the same community of people who are anti-mask, anti-vaccine, they were the ones back then that were saying that the numbers were being inflated. They would say that, how do you know that all these people died from COVID-19? They're not dying from COVID-19. Where's the autopsies and where's this and where's that? So no matter what number was reported for any given period of time, these people denied the number because they said, no, those numbers are not real. They're inflated. You can die of anything. And they're just going to put COVID-19 as a cause of death. But why? Because hospitals have an incentive to make more money. They get more money if it's a COVID death versus a different kind of death. And so, I mean, I'm sure you all have heard all that stuff. But now, where is that same energy when it comes time for people saying that people are dying from the vaccine? Because that was the virus. But now when they say 1,000 people have died from the vaccine, these same people are not breaking their neck to be like, well, how do you know they died from the vaccine? Where's the autopsy? Where's this? Where's that? See? So I'm telling you, there's a problem going on. There's the logic is out the window.
Yeah.
Reasoning, all that stuff. People are cherry picking, and I'm telling you, it just boils down to ignorance and fear, because we fear what we don't know, and ignorance is what is the meaning behind ignorance is not to know. You don't know, and so people don't know. Now we don't know everything, so that's a given. But we got people who not only do they not know, but they make decisions on not knowing, and then don't even try to change that not knowing to knowing. They don't pursue. They don't get informed. So they're satisfied with not knowing. Then they make a decision, and they take a stance based on ignorance. That's what it all boils down to. And I've proven it the entire year. All the conversations I have from people who are against the vaccines when they came out, and then prior to the vaccines, all information about the virus, the numbers, the number of cases, the number of deaths, the number of recoveries, all that kind of stuff that I would talk about. they have nothing. They can't stand on anything. And you know, so it's just really, really weird. Really, really weird. And it's just a problem.
Yeah, it's like confirmation bias to the extreme. Because I mean, all the information they want, even the ingredients of the vaccine are there, but they're just not looking for that.
Yep. The ingredients are listed. Um, the procedures, even before getting vaccinated, they give you a handout. They give you a full little pamphlet handout, several sheets of paper explaining who should get vaccinated, who should avoid being vaccinated, everything. The CDC rearranged its website because of the pandemic, and the FDA and vital statistics. I mean, the CDC and FDA, between the two of those websites, they have everything. They have all the information. There's nothing that people talk about that's not there, unless it's fresh, you know, real time, you know, observations, scientific studies, or whatever the case is. But everything's there. The ingredients, the all the different vaccines, mRNA. They explain mRNA vaccine, the technology, the delivery methods, all of that. The stats are there, and what they mean. What the difference between efficacy and effectiveness, what the percentages are for both, and all. I mean, everything is there. And I always ask people, have you read it? And the answer, listen, without exception, is no. I have never had a conversation with a person who was against, on the side of against, who has actually read the data.
They say they don't have to. They can see all the deaths that the vaccine is doing. That's enough proof for them.
Yeah.
They still can't confirm that.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, you know, me, you know, dealing with that, what I advocate is simply for people to get informed. That's it. That's the best I can do. Like, no matter what, because, you know, everybody's a grown adult. They're going to make their decision. And so I just push that people make decisions based on being informed, as opposed to making a decision out of ignorance. Make a decision based on what you know and not what you don't know. And then take time to know. Actually take time out to know. You know, it's just that simple.
Hey, you want to hear something funny? I saw this Facebook post. This guy said,
you got 50 billion in your account too?
Oh no, not like that. That's not fun. I would consider that a joke.
Yeah, I'm saying that's how Mika dropped it, boy. She like, y'all want to hear something funny happened to me this morning? You know, I have 50 billion in my bank account.
But I almost stopped working for that.
But what were you saying?
But yeah, I saw this Facebook post, right? It was this guy was talking to somebody. He was like, I got this I got this vaccine and I'm gonna give you the ingredients to all of it. Would you take it? And so he put a whole list of all the chemicals of the list. So he just listed a whole bunch of chemicals. And they said, would you take this vaccine? He was like, no. The other guy was like, no, I'm not taking that at all. It's too much. All them words, you can't even recognize what that is. And so the guy just responded back to him and said, I just gave you the whole chemical compounds of an apple.
Right.
Like, folks really just, it's this chemical scare and all this type of stuff. Is like, they really just don't understand what these things are.
It's based on ignorance, because that's a very good way to flush that out, that example you just gave, because there's a running joke that people will say that if there's an ingredient in any food that's more than 3 syllables or that you can't pronounce, then it must be harmful. Therefore, it must not be good for you. Therefore, do not eat it. And that's just stupid, because a lot of chemicals in chemistry, a lot of terminology in chemistry, astronomy, and different sciences, they pull from a reservoir of Greek and Latin words to coin different words. And so it's going to be foreign to us. It's going to be multi-syllabic and so on and so forth. Just on the strength of that practice. And so it's just silly. It's just silly. It really is silly. And now I've done something similar to what you said, but it wasn't in that way. That's a good thing. But I actually took this was a while back. Somebody was talking about natural something, and they were naming something as an ingredient, and I looked up the scientific term for it, because a lot of things have have two names. One name that we know by, that we know things by and whatnot, and then another name that's used in the field of study. And so I looked it up, and the name that we all know it by, this person was in favor of it. It was like, oh man, this is good, whatever. But the moment I mentioned this technical term for the same thing, they shunned away from it. I'm like, well, why would you do that? So it's crazy. And so that's part of the programming. That's part of the how we're being cultivated to think that way. So it's crazy. It really is crazy. So anyway, but I don't know. I just brought this health stuff up because we're still in the pandemic. People have laxed. People have definitely laxed up with the pandemic. And listen, people don't understand how viruses work and stuff. Like epidemiology is a high level discipline. It is a selfless discipline. When you study epidemiology, you're studying things with groups, multiple people's population. So this is population health. This is not personal health, like one-on-one, like what's good for you. This is about what's good for the community, what's good for the population. And so epidemiologists, the people, they're thinking very, very broad and stuff. But a lot of people think very narrow about themselves, about their own health. And I say that because a lot of the policies and recommendations that come from the level of epidemiology is for the group and not for individuals. So when they say things like, wash your hands, wear a mask, practice social distancing and stuff, and they give the reasons why, it's not, and then the pushback is for people, people like, well, my immune system is strong, and me, myself, and I, my, and they're not thinking about those people in the community who are vulnerable, who, this, that, and the third. And so I say that because what's going on now, because of the way we've acted during the pandemic, during the last year, the virus is still spreading out there. Now, in virology, so if you combine epidemiology with virology, now you can have a better understanding of viruses and viral behavior. Okay, so now if you study that a bit, people will learn that the longer that a virus is in a population of people, the more chances it will mutate to form variants that will evade whatever solutions we come up with. So a virus can infect a population. It can cause an outbreak, or it can be elevated to an epidemic, or even a pandemic when it's global. And that's what we're in. And once a virus hits the population like that, we're going to try to solve that. We're going to try to come up with something to combat it and defend and defeat it. Well, guess what? The longer the virus stays in the population, it's going to be able to evade those things. And that's a natural process through mutations, because viruses replicate at a very fast pace. And so every time it replicates, there's potential for a mutation. And so these mutations over time will form these variants. That's why we see these variances. There's a lot of variants out there, but there are about 5, I believe 4 or 5 that are of concern. So you only hear about 4 or 5 of them, but there's more. But the variants comes from the fact that the virus is still thriving in the population. So it's given chance and time to mutate because through replication. And so what's the purpose of the variant? The variant is going to, or the mutation occurs, and it's going to throw off our defense. Well, whatever solution we come up with. And so here's the thing. So by people having the attitude of not social distancing, being anti-mask and things like that, not knowing that the whole point of all that stuff was to eradicate the virus from the population. Okay, because the virus needs a host in order to replicate. And so if you take the host away, the virus will die. And in any given population, you remove the host, the virus will stop at that population. It can't spread. But the attitude was the opposite. It's like, oh, nah, I need my freedoms. I need to go out. I need to, the mask. I'm anti-mask. The mask was killing us. The CO2. I mean, people were making all kinds of excuses not to do what epidemiologists and these people were recommending to do. So they weren't looking at the bigger picture of all of this. The goal, listen, the ultimate goal is to eliminate and eradicate the virus or viruses out of the population, the harmful viruses out of the population. That is the goal. And to reach that goal, you have to understand how viruses work and work within that framework to defeat it. Since viruses need hosts in order to perpetuate itself, you prevent it from doing that. And so here's the thing: if the entire country, if the United States simultaneously at one time was to shut down for a full month, and at the longest 60 days, 2 months, we would not be in the situation that we're in right now. The virus would have been severely reduced in the population. The transmission, the spreading, and all that kind of stuff would have been like reduced big time. But we didn't do that. The whole country didn't shut down at one time. Certain states stayed open, certain states shut down, and the timing of it and all that kind of stuff. And we had people traveling and spread it. That's it. All it takes is one person.
New York just lifted their restriction. Just like about 2-3 days ago. Okay.
Yeah. But there was no coordinated effort in any of that. And so the leadership is responsible for that. They're to blame. The leadership on the federal level and the state level. Because they're not epidemiologists. They're not looking at it through the lens of epidemiology and virology in order to tackle this threat. But let a foreign missile or military act come, you're talking about concentrated effort. They're good at that. But when this invisible enemy comes into the country and stuff, all of a sudden we don't know how to act. Our leadership, our officials and leadership and stuff like that, they do not operate the same way. Yep.
Sure don't.
And so here we are. So this is a consequence of the behavior. These variants, like, now they have Greek names to them. You got alpha, theta, gamma, delta, and beta. These are the names of different variants that's out there, and Delta is the one that is prevalent right now, I believe. Somebody can correct me on that. But the variants would not be here had we handled our business in the beginning or in the first 2 months. But people looked at it all, they politicized it on the government side. And then as far as the layperson, people all over social media, people out of ignorance, just talking trash, just talking, oh, the mask is not good. How's the mask going to work? The virus can get through the holes of the mask and stuff, not even understanding how masks are made, how the N95 works and stuff like that. I mean, it's just straight up ignorance all around, all around, all around, all around. So anyway, yeah, anyway, so but I want to kind of talk just about that. But anyway, at the end of the day, I hope everyone's being safe. I hope that you know people take time out to just learn this stuff and don't fall victim to the misinformation. Check things out. Check things out. Learn how to discern though.
I do. Well, before we get off of that, I just want to know, like, what do you say to Black people who believe that everything science is just made from the white people? Especially, in current events, like even the vaccine and how it's administered and everything, they just think it's all the white person's doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too much you can do for people like that. Like I said, you can't when a person has their mind made up, it's we have a saying about this, like talking to a brick wall, or you might as well have a conversation with a doorknob. It's that's poison. That's a problem. People who have their mind made up, that's problematic, because what their mind made up, what made their mind up is empty. They didn't do the knowledge in order to come to that. They just come to that.
Yeah. I mean,
Whatever. It's really, really hard. Huh?
You think it's just the education that they have?
It can be one thing. I think for everybody, it's different things that might influence them.
Yeah, it's a number of things, but now why people do that, it goes back to the underlying point of culture, like what's important to this culture. We don't have it in the culture to make it important to learn to discern. Discernment is not a high priority in this culture. It's not. It's just not. People have to learn how to discern, how to evaluate. The power of evaluating information and doing it properly and stuff, man, it's not high on a list. So opinions is glorified more than discernment. If you have an opinion, that is welcomed. That's glorified. That, like, they got platforms where people are invited simply because they have an opinion.
Yeah, it's easy to go on a tangent.
Like gossip, opinion, how you feel about something, your point of view on something, your take on something. These things are glorified in our society now.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like, the truth don't really appeal to emotion.
No, it man, it could care less about emotions, about skin.
So that's what they just say. It's flat out boring and all this other stuff.
You mentioned something very important in the beginning. I think we could go back to that, and it was when you're talking about most people just focusing on the physiological sense of it and not the psychological part of it, and that kind of reminded me of what we learn with the the physicists, the physicians, not physicists, the physicians in ancient Egypt, in Kemet, and how they focused on two particular elements to work on, while treating an ailing person, or treating a disease, where you had the medicine part of it, and then you had the heka part of it that most people translate into magic or spells. And I think for the most part, having read that it was something to do with I don't know if that is correct, but maybe you can elaborate. Is having like something like a placebo effect, like where the patient is helped, to kind of like push them along into helping cure themselves, and all that, other than the medicine part being effective in curing the disease.
Oh, it got real quiet.
Yeah. Did y'all hear me?
I didn't hear the last part, what you were saying.
Yeah, last part.
Okay, which last part? What did you hear last?
But you might as well repeat what you said, because it was quiet for a minute.
Oh, okay. No, I was just saying that from what you talked about very, very earlier on, when you were talking about what, because I think I've only heard you get specifically into that, or the health part, as opposed to medicine and vaccination and all that, but just about health as a, being holistic when focusing on the physiological part and the psychological part. And it kind of reminded me of, when we study about the physicians in Kemet, and how they focused on both parts, where you had like the medicine and the what is the hacker part, that we say like magic or spells. And I was saying that maybe you might, I'm not so sure, because from what I've read, the hacker is like, people obviously translate it as magic, but that had to do something with like having a placebo effect, like of helping the patient cure themselves as well. So like I was wondering if you could go into that when you talked about the psychological part that people don't really focus on.
Well, yeah. See, here's the thing. Every act or our behavior is governed by our thoughts. Like, you can, like, the proxy of how a person thinks and their mental state is seen through their behavior. And so psychology is a study of the mind and behavior, because they run hand in hand. What goes on in a person's mind and how a person behaves are directly related. And so health is about a lifestyle. It's not a switch, because our condition, see, this is the thing. So I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna outline this real quick. Listen. Health is every bit of about time. If we understood, and we can go into it, I didn't start off this conversation with it, but we can have a specific topic. Like I said, this open discussion, and I just throw things out there. But if we want to slow it down and pick something to really go in on, we could do that, and somebody could recommend that, and we could do that, and set that up. But I'll say this much right now. Health, if once we understand how the body works, how the immune system works, the immune system is the key system for health in terms of the active. You got active components and passive components. The immune system is actively keeping us in a homeostasis state by constantly fighting and warring against enemies called pathogens. All right. That's constantly going on all the time. And once we understand how that works, then we will start to understand that health is about time. Like, time is a key element to health, because our bodies just simply need time to perform and do what it does. if we give our bodies all of the resources it needs, all of the nutrients that every system, every organ and its system needs, then it's just a matter of time where it just carries out what it's supposed to do. Nothing is instant. Nothing's at a snap of a finger. Everything takes time. And so health is always a race against the time, against time. So when a foreign object or a pathogen enters the body, the stopwatch starts. It is a matter of time. If the body has all of its resources and the immune system responds to it, it will respond, and it takes time to do that. So it depends on how deadly the pathogen is. And by deadly, that simply translates as how fast the pathogen can do damage. So if the pathogen that comes into the body does damage very, very fast at a faster pace and rate than the immune system can keep up with, then guess what? The preponderance or the shift is going to be in favor of the pathogen. And people are going to your health is going to fail. But if the immune system can outpace the damage done by the pathogen, then the immune system is going to prevail. The pathogen is going to lose. It's just that simple. And so once we understand that it's a race against time, then so here's where the psychological part come up and how health is a lifestyle. Because when we understand that, then we can start to program our psyche, our mind, which will then dictate our behavior. And our behavior will be the things that we do in terms of providing our bodies with all the things it needs. So the reason why how I started off when I said that health is a thing that's out of sight, out of mind until we get sick, that's when we pay attention to it. That's because there's no system in place that focus on the psyche or the psychology or the mind from the culture perspective for us to pay attention and behave in such a way where we're automatically giving our body what it needs. And so everything is linked together, or everything I said is kind of linked together. So one, we have to understand how our body works. We have to come to the understanding that health is every bit about a race against the clock. The way the immune system works is all against race against the clock. The way that these certain immune cells, and we can name them all, how they're produced, what do they do, how much time it takes. We have two major subsystems within the immune system: the innate, which is the always ready, always alert, and then the adaptive. And the adaptive, just the very word itself, is a clue that time is involved. It takes time to adapt. So here's the difference between the innate, which is not so dependent on time, and the adaptive that's dependent on time. The innate part of the innate immune system is your skin. Your skin doesn't need any time to form a barrier against the outside world and against pathogens. It's already there. We already have skin. The epidermis, all the different layers of the skin, they're there already and they're functioning. And that's part of the innate immune system. But Zane mentioned earlier antibodies. Antibodies are not in our system already. Antibodies are produced as a result of antigens coming into our body. And an antigen, the word antigen is short for antibody generator. So if an antibody generator doesn't come into our bodies, our bodies are not going to generate the antibody. That's why it's called an antibody generator.
And may I also add that naturally it'll take, when you get infected with the virus, it's gonna take at least 3 days for you to make some antibodies.
Yeah, sometimes longer than that.
So the virus just have a whole free period in your body.
Yeah, it takes right. And it depends, and here's the thing. It depends on the state that your body's in at any given time. So if you are a person who has not provided, who has a bad habit of not providing your body with the proper nutrients for the immune system to have its resources, then it's going to take even longer. And so again, the whole thing, the whole science about the immune system is time. We could talk about everything about the immune system in terms of time. Talk to an immunologist and say that to them, and they're gonna be like, wow. You can be like, yes, that's correct. It's always a race against time. It's always a race against time when the immune response, that response time. So here's the thing. I mean, we could think of a whole bunch of analogies to explain it. But a quick one is when your house, or if your house ever catch on fire or something like that, you have to dial 911. Guess what? The response time for the fire truck to get to your house is critical, and it's directly related to how much damage the fire is going to do to your house. If the fire department is real far away from your house and it takes a long time for them to get there, guess what? The flames is going to do a lot of damage and burn your house down.
Especially when your fire don't have the material that kind of have that are like fire resistant long enough to even stand up.
Okay, and that's a good point. And these are the analogies that I use on a regular basis. Just what you just said, and I was great. You beat me to it. Because what I was gonna say is in the analogy. So remember what I'm saying. All of this, everything, every single thing about the immune system can be talked about in terms of time. That's the simplest way to explain this stuff to people. Time is the thing. And then the analogy I always use is a burning house. Your house catch on fire. You're going to dial 911 because you want the fire department to come and put the fire out. It depends on how far the fire department is, how far they got to come. And it depends on how you have equipped your house with fire retardant materials and stuff like that to buy time. That's what you're doing. You're buying time. And that's what you're doing. And so what I'm saying is, if I turn off the analogy and I go back to the reality of the human body, the nutrients that we give our bodies on a day-to-day basis is what provides the body systems its resources to perform and do what it's supposed to do. But if we live a lifestyle of neglecting our bodies of the proper nutrients, then it's not going to have the resources to perform. And it's going to be very sluggish and very slow when a pathogen comes into the body. And then if the pathogen is go back to the analogy, if the fire is lit to a highly flammable material, it's going to go up in flames a lot faster than something that's damp or not as flammable. And so the strength of the pathogen or the deadliness of the pathogen is determined by whether your body can outpace it in terms of slowing it down from it spreading, if it's a virus, replicating and doing damage to the cells and organs. And that's it. It's all about time. Yeah. And so this is what I'm saying. Once people just learn the simple things about our own bodies and the systems, we would change our behavior. So to go back to what Emike was asking about psychology and stuff, is that there are cultures that understand this, both things. They understand how behavior is dictated by how we think, and how our lifestyles are dictated by our behavior. What we do on a habitual or routine basis. Because remember, we live many, like if we calculate lifespans in years, but each year has smaller units of measurement of time. So let's say if somebody lives to be 100 years old, 100 years, like we have a consciousness of 100 years, like we have an understanding of what 100 years is. But if we switch years over to months, a lot of us can't do that without pulling out a calculator. If you convert those months into days and then days into hours, and then you calculate the amount of time it takes for the immune system to adapt to any given pathogen, the average pathogen. And I'm not talking about the deadly ones, not the extremes. I'm talking about just the average pathogen. So we got to be mindful that this is going on every single second of every single day. Every second of every day.
Hey, you know what I forgot to bring up? They said that the way the vaccine, the mRNA vaccine work is like with the spike proteins and all that. They said it's working the same way as the virus, and I think they're believing that the vaccine is like telling your RNA and all that stuff to like destroy DNA, just like the virus RNA.
No, nobody has read that anywhere. That people are making that up out of ignorance. And so here's the thing. When people say that the vaccine is acting like the virus, that's the purpose of the purpose of a vaccine is education. So, like I said, the way that the immune system works, we can talk about it in terms of time. Well, we can talk about vaccines in terms of education, teaching. A vaccine simply educates the immune system so that the immune system can perform faster. So it's like a study guide for the immune system. And so the mRNA vaccine or any vaccine, it trains the immune system for any given more specific pathogen. So you got to understand that the immune system, like I said before, there are two major subdivisions of the immune system. There's the innate immune system, which is always on the ready. It's already there. Then you have the adaptive or acquired immune system. By its very name, it takes time to adjust. And so vaccines do not target the innate immune system because there's no need for education there. Vaccines educate the adaptive immune system because of time. Like I said, it goes back to time. All right. And so the vaccine producing the spike protein is very specific. The innate part of the immune system is not specific. It's general. It's like the bouncer at the club that don't care about anything. It's like, listen, you're not getting in here. It's indiscriminate. Whereas the adaptive immune system is target specific. And so vaccines are designed, regardless of what type, they're designed to trigger specific responses to specific pathogens. And the specificity of pathogens is based on how it enters the cell to replicate and ultimately damage the cell. And that's usually done by what's now called the spike protein. The spike protein is what it latches onto in the cell to be able to penetrate the cell membrane, get in there, hijack its machinery in order to replicate itself. And so vaccines trains the immune system to look out and be on guard for that specific spike protein so that it could fight it before all of that happens. So again, it's back to in terms of time. It's all about time. The best way to explain this to anybody is to use time. It's about time. That's it. Because our bodies are constantly, right now, as I'm talking, all of us right here, our immune system is at work 24/7. And we're constantly fighting off pathogens. We breathe in toxins and poisons every day. Our immune system is always at work. It's always at work. The skin, the innate part is like, that's on the clock 24/7. The skin is a big part of the innate immune system. And our skin doesn't vanish and then pop up when it wants to. No, our skin is always our skin. It's always there. It's always there. And that's a big part of the innate immune system. It blocks off and different parts of our skin. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was little, I used to go to the beach, right? A lot. And when I was little, I used to catch jellyfish. And I learned when I was little that the reason why I can catch jellyfish in my hand, the palm of my hand, and not get stung is because the palm of my hand, the skin on the palm of our hands are different than the skin on the back of our hands. And if those jellyfish tentacles were to wrap around the back of your hand, that bad boy will sting. It'll get irritated, itch, and sting. But on the palm of your hand, if it stay on the palm of your hand, you're good. And the bottom of your feet. And I learned that real young. And me and my friends, we used to go around, and my cousins, we used to catch jellyfish and throw them in the bucket without getting stung. And I'm saying that to say that the jellyfish has poison. These are poison toxins that the jellyfish have, but our skin protected us.
And the closest I ever got to a jellyfish was like at least 11 feet. I didn't get that close.
Oh, nah, we used to catch jellyfish, but we used to catch them all the time. We used to look for them, catch them, and sling them in the buckets. Yep. I got stung a couple of times because like I said, if you hold it wrong and it wrapped around the back of your hand, you're gonna feel it. Don't let a jellyfish get on your thighs. Like,
so it like seep into your pores or something?
Say it again.
It like the toxins seep into your pores or something like that?
Yeah, the skin, like, there's different types of skin, like our skin, the different layers. And palm of our hands have a thicker and I'm not even gonna pretend to know off the top of my head what the layers are, but I think it's the epidermis. It's thicker. It's made of different things where it's protective.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it makes sense because that's where that's our where we do have most action, where we walk, our bottom of our feet and stuff like that. But it's just interesting. So I'm just saying, but I brought that up because the difference between the innate immune system and all of its components, it's always on deck, ready to protect. The adaptive immune system is what has to be taught and what takes time. It is a matter of time. It always boils down to time. And the question that your health asks is, do I have enough time to mount a defense against this enemy? Will this enemy overwhelm me, or will I eventually prevail? Because when the enemy first shows up, it's usually in shock. Your body is usually shocked because it doesn't recognize it. It's a complete stranger. And so what vaccines do, vaccines train your immune system to already recognize the enemy, to where it doesn't go through that shock period where it has to learn. It already knows now. So now, instead of learning and then reacting, now the body can react because it already learned by way of the vaccine. So the vaccine is a crash course. The vaccine is like a packet, a library packet, or a download that's given to your immune system. It's like a jump drive. Boom, just teaching your immune system. That's what it is. It's like, that's what it is. It's just teaching your immune system. And so vaccine technology is where is a huge breakthrough, because there are pathogens out there now. Like, listen, everything evolves. Living organisms that are halfway alive, because viruses are arguably not living. So some people on the side of viruses are living, some people are not. But they mutate, and they mutate very, very quickly. And everything mutates. And so what happens is the mutation in and of itself doesn't mean much. It only has value and meaning when that mutation evades our defenses. That's it. We don't care if a virus mutates until it evades our defenses. Those mutations mount up to evade. Now the virus is not thinking, saying, okay, I'm going to go to sleep right now, and when I wake up, I'm going to mutate to avoid this and that. That's not how it works. The mutations occur in the replication process through random errors in the transcription of its DNA code or RNA code. And once those errors get so great to where it changes the proteins that the virus makes, that creates the building block of what we call in spike protein, once it changes its shape and all that kind of stuff, then it's going to become undetectable by the previous training. So if I train you to look out for a 6-foot guy with wearing all black and an Adidas hat, and that's the guy I look out for, then the moment that Adidas hat changes now to a Nike hat, you're gonna allow that to go by, because it's not an Adidas hat anymore. But I trained you based on the Adidas hat. And that's what happens. That's what mutations or variants do. So many mutations occur in a population of viruses in any given population of people, then it forms a variant that may give the immune system a little harder time, and vaccines. Because remember, the vaccine is made for specifics. And once it gets outside of that range of that specific area, then it starts to evade. The vaccines become less effective, and even the immune system. And so here's another example. Let's say you get infected by a virus, and your body has the necessary time to mount a defense, and it prevails. It forms the antibodies, and the antibodies eventually sweeps and gets rid of the virus. Okay, but guess what? Those antibodies are very specific. And so if that virus stays in the population long enough, it's going to mutate, and it's going to form variants. And then that variant may show up at your front door again and enter your body. And guess what? Those antibodies that your body had already, they're going to be no good for the variant. Even though the variant came from the same virus that you did once have, and you fought off successfully, the variant comes into your body. Your body may not fight it off successfully. That's the risk that people are taking right now with SARS-CoV-2 and these variants out there. People are playing, allowing the virus to stay in the population, and is going to mutate. Every single virologist knows this, preaches this. Every single infectious disease expert knows this and preaches this. This is why people like Fauci and all of his colleagues in the same field are so adamant about trying to eradicate the virus out of the population. But everybody's taking it personal and looking at only themselves and not looking at it population health. It's not about personal health. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that probably, and this is a question for you, because listening to you for the last 1.5 hours or so, just break down about the vaccine and health and body, because you simplified it, and not to blame everybody that's anti-vax or whatever, because when you listen to there are some people who are good at simplifying stuff and just making it make sense. But from what I see is that people can have a lot of conversation about the vaccine and make it so complex, where the regular person just needs to understand, how does this affect me? How does it benefit me? How does it protect my body? Because you could actually simplify it without having 100 conversations about it, and then people become, then they can have they can either decide to have a vaccine or not have a vaccine from an informed opinion. But that being informed comes from understanding your body. Like when you came in and when you first asked us how many of us know like the nutrients, all the nutrients that our body needs. And obviously a lot of us don't know. I don't know all the nutrients that my body needs to function optimally. And then the second thing is I and a lot of other people are not fully informed about how our body system or my body system function. So because people don't know that, everything becomes like a conspiracy, like a vaccine that is supposed to actually help your body becomes something like the system, quote unquote, is trying to get you to partake into and then ruin your body. And that actually just shows that most people don't know their body. So do you think that a lot of the being on the fence about the vaccine is just because people don't know how their body really functions, like how the body works, all the different parts of the body and how it needs to be functioning optimally? So, and
100%.
really, go ahead.
I said you're 100% correct. That is the root of vaccine hesitancy. It's the root of all of the noise. If you listen to anti-vaxxers, they don't know how the immune system works. For the most part, they don't. They just don't. And that's why I say it's out of ignorance. They do not know. And this is why, like now 2 years ago, when that vaccine debate took place, the most important thing to do at any vaccine debate between vaxxers and anti-vaxxers or whatever is to have a section of the debate, and it doesn't even have to be part of the debate, but there needs to be a presentation on how the immune system works prior to the debate even taking place.
Right.
And this is what I said back then, that the most important thing to do is to teach people how the immune system works. Because once you understand how the immune system works, man, about 99% of their arguments go out the window. Like straight up and down, it goes out the window.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Like, I want to say to y'all, like, why do y'all think people like reference? They're so quick to reference movies, like I Am Legend or Divergent or something like that, to make it. They feel like that's actual fact.
Because
what possibility to happen with medical, anything medical.
Because that's easy. See, it's easy to reference a movie than to do actual research and read data from
like
actual
are they going to sit down and talk to these directors and producers about what information they know?
No, they're not. They're not. People will do that. People will reference 28 Days Later, that show, Zombie Apocalypse, that show, I Am Legend. They will, all these different shows and past movies that dealt with breakouts and stuff. Even got a movie called Breakout or something like that, Outbreak or whatever. And they're going to reference those things because that's the reference they have. That's the point of reference they have. And that is very telling in and of itself. That's very, very telling. Because here's the thing. See, this, I don't know, like we really, really, really have to get back into logic. Because here's the problem with that. On one hand, people will be willing to cite a movie to support their argument. So when they do that, they're treating the movie as a source, as a resource. But yet, so in their mind, they think that a movie is a reflection of reality that they can use. But if you talk to that same person and talk about movies that have a lot of violence in them, and killing and guns and stuff like that, and you ask them, is the violence in that movie and guns in that movie dictating the real life violence out here and stuff? If so, we need to get rid of those movies too, huh? And so they can't reconcile those two things. And so these are examples of inconsistent logic. And what I'm saying, I'm telling you, a lot of this noise that's out here surrounding health and all this other kind of stuff is rooted in ignorance. There's a retardation going on, and retarded simply means slow. People are slow to grasp and comprehend these things because we don't put in the work. That's it. A lot of people are just simply retarded when it comes to this stuff. There's no other way to put it. That's just the bottom line. They people actually think that eating a food is a replacement for a vaccine. And anybody that feels that way, you should immediately know that that person has no clue to how the body works, how the immune system works. And so this is why I said, because a lot of anti-vaxxers, although they're anti-vaccine, they're pro nutrition and eating healthy and stuff like that, but they're using that as a replacement for vaccines. And they serve two different functions and purposes.
I agree there. I just want to add my little 2 cents because I'm an anti-vaxxer, I guess. Greetings all, by the way.
Greetings.
So, my children have never been vaccinated. They're in their 20s, some of them pushing 30s now. I probably haven't been vaccinated since the 80s and things like that. But one thing I did with my family is anything we did, we discussed with our primary care physician first, especially when it came to our children and things like that. So our choice to not vax came after we consulted with our doctor and we found a plan that suited our children's needs. Now, I do have one child out of all of my 7 children that's been vaccinated before, and that was for the flu vaccine. And the only reason we got her vaccinated was because without it, she kept getting the flu, but the moment she got it, she was immune. So after maybe about 2 or 3 times getting the shot, she built up a strong immunity for the flu, but prior to that, she couldn't have it. Now, this same child is also exempt from receiving the COVID vax because of her current health issues. Not that she's sick or anything, but she does have chronic issues. So there are a lot of reasons why some anti-vaxxers don't vax, like myself. We're also one of those families that were vegan, and with my children being younger children at the time, went through the doctor as well. We never gave the children fluoride, so they never used fluoride toothpaste. We consulted with our dentist as well, and our dentist and our primary care physicians actually used our families as model families for other families trying to do things that we were doing. So to not generalize all anti-vaxxers, some people do actually take the time out to make conscious decisions in that manner with regard to those situations. And I do sometimes cite those movies. They scare the shit out of me just to put that 2 cents in there. But I make my decisions based on logic.
Okay, so let me just say something to what you said. So I want to point out a difference with you versus although you start off by saying you are anti-vaxxer, you're actually not the same type of anti-vaxxer, because there's a difference between being anti-vaccine in the general sense of the label of anti-vax or anti-vaxxer versus a person who simply just did not get vaccinated and had no reason for themselves or their loved ones or family to get vaccinated. So because I know a lot of people who deal with this subject. So I know people who have never, like yourself, who have not been vaccinated in a very long time, or don't get a flu shot. Like me, I have never had a flu shot in my life, but I have been vaccinated. My vaccine schedule that most children my age, when I was younger, went through. I had all those done, but in terms of a flu shot, I've never got that done, or whatever the case is. So there's a difference between people who choosing, okay, not to be vaccinated versus being anti-vaccine, being against vaccinations, period. And so there's a difference. So with that difference being explained, now I want to ask you, are you against vaccinations, or what vaccines are for and what they do, or are you simply just one of the people that feel like, okay, I don't need to be vaccinated because of ... And I'm saying there's a difference.
Yeah, there's a difference, and I'm personally one of those ... people that you just mentioned. However, it's not anti-vaccination. I'm more of a little bit more leery of establishments imposing certain vaccinations on people and making it seem as though everybody needs it, because medical history plays a very, very deep part in how you take care of your health. So you may be somebody who's allergic to a symptom inside of these vaccines, and without actually consulting your doctor properly, or your doctor just being wanton and wanting to get you that vaccine because he's getting a check or something like that, which I've seen on several levels, you take the time to say, you know what, no. But for me, I believe in inoculations, and I don't want to use that word believe, but I do think that certain inoculations are okay. Now, the new technology that they're using, I'm totally against. I'm not with this whole rewrite my DNA for your intended purposes and being a guinea pig type thing. But
okay, wait, pause right there. Pause right there. Okay, so
I think that's for eligibility.
So wait a minute, because you said a couple of things. Okay, so now I want to make this clear. There's nobody in the infectious disease discipline or epidemiology or even these institutions or agencies that are regulating this stuff that are that are saying that everybody needs to get vaccinated. In fact, they're saying the opposite. Because we can go to the FDA website right now. We can go to the CDC's website right now. They will tell you who should not be vaccinated. They have categories of people who should not be vaccinated. And in fact, when you go to get vaccinated, before the healthcare worker injects you or gives you your shot, they give you a handout of paperwork that on that paperwork will tell you whether or not you should be vaccinated.
Right, I've seen that, and I agree. But however, I get updates from the governor, especially in my state, and a couple other politicians, and the overall consensus is that this is what we're kind of forcing on you, and certain news media outlets give the appearance that everyone has to. So that's kind of what I was referring to, not necessarily the CDC and all of that, because the CDC also tells you to prepare for zombies on their website too.
But here's my point. Here's my point. This is what people are not understanding. From an epidemiological perspective, the push is to get vaccinated. And there are tons of valid reasons why that push is pushed. But when it's actually executed, no one is blankly saying everybody has to get vaccinated. So the two can coexist. And the reason why there's a push for people to be vaccinated in general is because of what the vaccine does, as opposed to what the virus does, and at the level of public health, in terms of eradicating the virus from the population, so that we don't come up with these more variants that become more and more transmissible and more deadly, and cause more and more illnesses, sicknesses, hurt people, and or kill them.
Yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but the current pandemic we're in dictates that this is a man-made or man-created virus that we're dealing with. So the variants, in fact, a military buddy of mine last year sent me information that there were over 8 strands already circulating the globe. So it's one of those situations where it's like, yay or nay, are we, the people, actually being set up for something else, and are using this pandemic as an ulterior motive, or what's really going on. So I think that's where a lot of people's confusion and just utter not wanting to do it, deal with that type of vaccination right now is coming from.
Well, listen. I like I said before, I've been dealing with this for over a year now, in these conversations directly with medical professionals and just your average Joe. And even with that, the fact that if people believe that this virus was man-made and created in a lab and then later escaped or leaked from the lab, intentionally or not, that actually works against the idea of what everybody was saying before. Because if this virus is man-made as a biological weapon, then to weaponize a virus, you're going to weaponize it to evade a person's natural immunity. You're not going to manufacture a virus where the human body's immune system can easily just defend against it. That defeats the purpose of creating a virus that's gonna be weaponized as a biological weapon against humans. So
I disagree for one reason. If you're the pharmaceutical company who's responsible for the manufacture of this drug and you have the antidote, then it only makes sense for you to release this into the public and all of that. So it kind of falls along that same path.
How when you're getting it for free?
Well, the vaccine companies aren't getting for free. They're getting cash to produce these vaccines. So that makes sense because they're getting paid on the back end.
But to produce it also needs, it's not like they have to clap their hands and it's produced. It takes money to produce it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like they're taking the money to squander and profiting out of it because, I mean, if you get what I mean. So the only way pharmaceuticals make money is by selling it to the consumers, not to produce. Because production actually takes a lot of money because time goes into it. So they're not really benefiting out of it to give it for free.
And hold up, but listen,
that's what I'm saying. They're selling it to these governments. They're not selling it to the average Joe. I haven't seen anybody that's had to actually pay for it. And then in the beginning, last year, when the first batches of the so-called virus came out, you had a lot of wealthy people paying top dollar just to get those first batches.
Well, hold
up. You're saying that the government is benefiting out of it from, giving money.
No, not the government. I mean, the businesses are benefiting from the government subsidies that are putting that money out there. The government put out so much money for all these different companies to figure out what was going on, which is how they were able to come up with these vaccines so fast and this with these trials and all of that stuff, because they got money from the feds to figure this mess out. The companies that didn't probably already had bankroll.
But see, wait, we jumped too fast. This is why you gotta slow the conversation down. You disagree with me on a point, so we got to get back to that point. Let me repeat what I said. I said that if this virus was created in a laboratory as a biological weapon and then released into the population intentionally or unintentionally, the fact that it is created as a biological weapon, that in and of itself, the act of creating a virus is to do so to avoid the human immune system's ability to defend itself. Otherwise, it would not even be a worthwhile endeavor to even do from the get-go. And so, but here's the thing. So but
that's where I'm disagreeing with you at, though, is that it would be on a financial aspect because you don't want somebody dead. You can't keep capitalizing off of dead people, but you can capitalize off of sick people if you have a suspected antidote or some type of vaccine that might help you defeat it, so on and so forth.
Okay, but it actually works. Wait. I want you to realize that I never mentioned death out of my mouth.
No, you didn't. You didn't. I said that.
I know. So we got to go back to, so I don't want you to inject something that I did not say. And then you disagree with something that you inject into what I said instead of rejecting what I'm actually saying. Okay. So again, a weaponized virus, the only reason behind weaponizing a virus is for that virus that you're weaponizing is for it to evade the human immune response so they can have an effect on the human body. Because if the human body could simply defend against the virus that you have now weaponized, then that makes your creation moot, just a dumb idea. And so I'm not talking about death.
Wait, say that last part again. I want to make sure I heard you clear.
Okay, if somebody is going to create a virus and to weaponize a virus against human beings, for them to even want to go and do that and to execute that, the goal would be to create the virus to where it can evade the human natural immune ability to defend itself. And I'm not talking about kill the person. I'm talking about to avoid the immune system. Okay, because right now our immune systems successfully fights off pathogens all the time. Okay, so why would somebody create a virus to fall up in that same category where our immune system can successfully defend against it like it does any other thing?
Yeah, that logic doesn't make sense.
I mean, in a sense, that doesn't make sense, but to me, we're kind of witnessing some of that in a sense.
But what I'm saying is that the effort to create a virus would obviously be above and beyond what the body's natural defenses can handle. Otherwise, there's no reason to create a virus or to weaponize a virus.
Well, I think some of that has to go with being able to the business aspect of virology and the part of patenting certain viruses. So like anytime you create or anytime a government creates a bioweapon or anything bioorganic, they actually have the DNA sequences patented.
Okay, let me ask you this. Would a gun manufacturer create a gun that has absolutely no effect on any person or object or whatever the case is? Or let's say an ammunition company that manufactures bullets for guns. Would they be in business, or would they even make attempts to manufacture bullets that have absolutely no effect on any person, object, or whatever the case is?
Nah, that wouldn't make sense for them to make a thing like that. But on the same note, it's kind of a redundancy that somebody would even be in that field attempting to not make sense.
So now you have successfully helped me to make my point. My point is that with this virus, if a group of people or a person was to try to create a viral weapon, why would they create a viral weapon that had no effect on human beings?
I mean, the point is, we know it has an effect. So the question isn't whether or not it had an effect, though. That's the thing. We know that the virus was created in a laboratory.
I know, but I'm making the point. I'm making the point that nobody would try to create a virus and weaponize a virus as a biological weapon. And nobody would manufacture it not to have any effect on humans. So my point, now that has been established, I'm saying that if that's the case, that this virus, SARS-CoV-2, is a man-made virus that has been weaponized, then that's even the more reason why people should really look into vaccinations, because obviously it was developed to evade the natural immune response. Because otherwise, why create it in the first place as a biological weapon? Just like I said, why would somebody create bullets that have no effect?
Yeah, I feel you there. It doesn't make sense if you create something that doesn't have an effect. But obviously, we know, foreign bodies inside of any healthy situation. I mean, you drink too much water, you'll drown. So it's kind of
now you're speaking to dosage. So and that's correct. But so
it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like it's a double-edged sword on that end, because why would they do that? But then the answer to that would be obviously because they're selling a product, which would be these vaccines, not to the general public, but to. But
you wouldn't need it. But what I'm saying is that you wouldn't even need a vaccine if the bioweapon had no effect.
Well, you wouldn't engineer a bioweapon that wouldn't have an effect. That's my whole point.
No, that was my point.
That's not both our points. Well, I agree with you. How about that? I agree with you on that point. But the question is whether or not the vaccine. Okay, my question really is, and it's not to you, but in general over the subject is the vaccine the product of that type of trickery? Because if that's the case, then what is the ulterior motive behind this so-called vaccine that's supposed to be so good at helping us? And if this was put out, the SARS-CoV-2 was released into the general population to incite that reaction, then what is really going on with these vaccines? That's the question I have with it. Like, it's too much. I've been around for too long to not want to question certain things. And that's one of the things that I question.
How would you know?
Well, hold up. But wait. Just real quick though. I just want to stress that questioning is very, very healthy. But you said something that it seems like you have you start off with a bias instead of an empty cup. So the vaccine, what about the vaccine gives that air of nefariousness, like this ill intent? What?
For one, reading the fact that hexane is one of the major ingredients in it, and it's used to scrub your DNA, but it's also extremely poisonous and cancer, a known carcinogen, even though the CDC doesn't list it as a carcinogen, but has been linked to cancer. That's one of my
wait, what was the ingredient and which vaccine? Because we have to keep in mind.
The Pfizer Bioden in particularly has hexane, but I think all of them have some form of liquid detergent, and that's what hexane is. It's a industrial type of detergent that they use to help scrub the genes.
Okay, so it sounds like you're moving around, but if you can share that with us, because listen, I'm gonna tell you this. I have these conversations on a regular basis. I talk to people from both extremes. I talk to people in the medical industry on the front lines. I talk to the behind the scenes people, epidemiologists, virologists, immunologists, and then lay people that fall on both sides, and every single time, without exception, when it comes down to providing data that's supposed to be in the mix for people to reach their conclusions, it falls short. So I'm going to ask you again, show me this detergent, and you said
Hexane. If you Google it, it'll pop up and it'll show you.
I'm saying, not that you have to be, but I'm saying, are you in a position where you can show us, like share your screen or show us?
Sometimes Zoom won't let anybody but the host do it.
No, I could grant you if that's why I'm asking you, if you're able to. I could
pull it up on the web real quick. I'm actually in the middle of I'm a private contractor, so I'm working while we're talking too. So.
Okay, well, all right. So okay, so
hold on, I'm ready to pull it up.
Okay, no. So just tell us, and I'll pull it up.
Just look up look up the hexane effects on humans.
No, but where did you get the ingredients to the vaccine you have in hexane?
I'm a private contractor. I own a cleaning company. So one of my contracts happens to be with a government facility that issues the COVID vaccine. So I've had the privy to examine some of the information that were in the vaccine package. Also kind of been examining, because one of the other scares people was having that the vaccine was fake because of these retractable needles and all of this stuff. So when I'm around medical professionals, my sisters are nurses and things like that. I know epidemiologists and virologists, people who actually make viruses and things like that. So I talk to them too. But my information on the hexane in particular is the Pfizer BioNTech, BioNTech, which that name alone was a kind of a red flag for me. But just that one in particular has hexane in it. I haven't had the opportunity to research all of them, so I'm not sitting there saying all of them have it in there, but hexane has been used in other vaccines over the years, and it's quite normal for them to use that.
Okay, so just a quick question while we try to dig up this hexane. and I'm just saying if Pfizer has this ingredient in there that you're speaking of and Moderna doesn't, then does Moderna get your okay?
No.
Okay.
Right now, none of these COVID vaccines will get my okay, simply because I don't like how they did the trial testing. This just went too fast, even for this first time, and forever type of pandemic situation that we're all experiencing. Most of us for our first times in our lives. So I'm kind of a little just wary, period, simply because I know some. I'm old school, so I know the Tuskegee experiments and things like that, and the West Nile. Complex where they used to develop bioagents and things like that. So I'm leery of certain things regardless. That's just me.
So you wanted it to take just as long as it took 20 years ago or 30 years ago to come up with a vaccine?
Well, no, I think that
Like
there should be alternative means. I think that a lot of people have figured out ways of being proactive and treating SARS-CoV without actual vaccines, and they've been successful. My wife in particular had to get when she got COVID, and she has a compromised immune system, so it would have killed her. And actually, what would have killed her was the hospital more so than the virus. And that was because of the practices that these hospitals are carrying on, especially with these respirators. But what helped my wife again was the blood plasma. She received blood plasma from someone who had COVID previously and had recovered. So that was something that she was able to do that helped her out, but she couldn't receive the vaccine because of her health issues.
Okay, so because you started out by saying that you're wary about the time that it took. So yeah, so then you said so is it the time that it took, or is it because alternatives? Because you got to be straight.
There's two things. It's the time that it takes, and I'm wary of where we are right now in this quote unquote era with this nation and how they are forcing these certain things. The way they force certain things on us nowadays is just a little crazy.
So with the time that it takes, what is it about it? Is it that it took too fast and you wanted it to take too long? How long?
It took too fast, and if you've been watching the Senate hearings, the reason they stopped the animal trials is because the animals started dying. And they went straight into emergency use. So that was a big red flag for me. When the animals are starting to die over it, you kind of got to be worried. And then that's when doses comes into play, because we're not receiving as large of a dose as an animal would. So if they're dying off of the same similar size dosages that we're receiving, then that just means that these strands or the amount of the doses that we're receiving isn't enough to kill, but it's enough to possibly injure. So I'm weary of that also.
Okay, and
all right, so that's.
I don't know if they died. I just think they didn't have enough available.
So let's get back to this. So you have an issue with the vaccines. Now you kind of went really fast over the modification of DNA, and I want to get back to that as soon as we're done with this one though, because you said that one first, but we kind of skipped over.
Yeah, and just to list, because he has a lot of issues, so I just hope that you list them and then go over all of them, because he talked about he didn't want to be a guinea pig. So I don't know if he received a letter that was mandatory for him to be one of the original.
No. I didn't receive any of it, but what I meant by that was the overall overtone pushed out there by the media is that, if you don't, and it's not now, because since everything's been opening back up, everything's been relaxed. But for a while, the attitude was, if you don't get this, you're not going to have a regular life. You're not going to be able to do this. We're going to force you to be stuck in the house. We want the military to come out and force you to do this. And when I start hearing things like that, that takes me back to another era in history that, you know what I mean? We're still trying to get from under.
But again, listen, like I said, I've been dealing with this for over a year since the pandemic started. And I've heard everything you said. Nothing you saying is new in terms of unique to me. I hear other people, I have these conversations with other people that say the same thing. And it boils down to things that you're influenced by, but are not actually being executed. Like the fear of being forced to do something, although we're not being forced to do it. It's the potential fear of mandates being forced, having your liberty stolen from you, et cetera, et cetera. It plays a part in these conversations but when it comes down to it, nobody's being forced. Like before before vaccines became available in November and December of last year, it was all about the military. It was all about testing. Everybody had a problem with the PCR test and the antibody test. They were saying people are going to be pulled out of their houses, forced to test with this pharyngeal nasal swab and this, that, and the third. They're going to separate families if they find you to be positive and this, that, and the third. And everybody was all fearful and saying that stuff was going to happen. It never happened. It never
didn't
happened.
happen to an extent, but there was the threat,
Oh.
the looming threat. I don't know if you ever talked to a contract tracer or had to deal with a contract tracer.
Yes, my listen, I have family who are in the medical field on frontline right now. And so
are they contract tracers? Because contract tracers are medical personnel.
Contact tracing. You talking about contact tracing? Yes.
Contact tracing. That's it's a part of the. It was a part of the health division that they established for the specific pandemic. But the contract tracers, they're bullies.
No, well, the ones I know are not. They're simply performing a public service by trying to trace out the route of infection to actually do something beneficial about that. So they're not. I mean, they're trying to get information. In that sense, they're trying to get information, but they're a lot less than telemarketers.
I can give
if you're gonna say they're bullies, then I can imagine what you call telemarketers that call your phone, spam.
That's what I call
like that.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with an attitude they might experience with a person, like like that person? What does that have to do with the issues on the vaccine itself? Because you have to be able to separate a treatment you get. For example, if you go to Walmart, you're not gonna say that the products there are bad because the cashier treated me badly, so you have to separate that. So
Right. Well, definitely.
Can I ask one question?
Before you ask that question, I just want to make this last statement. Everything I'm saying is strictly my opinion. So it's not that I'm trying to force or impose this on anybody. It's just how I feel about the situation.
Right, we understand that.
That's understood. But so Donnie, if you got a question, go ahead. But I want to get back to a couple of things. But go ahead.
Yes, sir. This will be real quick. So, sir, with my understanding, your wife had the COVID, right?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Did she get the vaccine?
No, she couldn't. She's immunocompromised. Her immune system was compromised years ago. So she's ineligible. Her and my daughter actually most of my children are eligible to get the vaccine in the first place. So that's one thing that's not stressing me.
So how did she get over it?
She had to receive plasma from someone who already had the virus and defeated it.
Okay. Hard antibodies.
Right. And then within 2 days, she was healed of the COVID. So the plasma, if anybody is open, and it's a very expensive treatment and things like that. But if you do have COVID and you have a family member and they put that option out there, that's something that I would recommend is the blood plasma from somebody who has.
That's all I wanted to ask. Thanks.
Now,
okay.
wait.
Yeah.
Okay, but that process it connects to the passive immunity. That's basically the kind of third category of immunity, where you're actually receiving antibodies from someone else. So from someone else's production of the antibodies to the antigen or the pathogens. But okay, so I want to go back though. So first of all, none of the mRNA vaccines, specifically Moderna and Pfizer, they do not alter your DNA whatsoever. So that is a scare that's circulating, that's been circulating, and people are fearful of. But their fear comes out of ignorance of understanding, one, how mRNA itself works in general, and then specifically how mRNA or messenger RNA works specifically in these vaccines. And every single person I talk to, without exception, who have that fear or who make those statements and claims, it's been 100% the time they do not or have not understood or done the knowledge on mRNA, period, in general or specific to these vaccines. But in gist, they do not alter your DNA. In fact, they don't even enter the nucleus of the cell to even interact with the DNA at all.
Well, that doesn't make sense because it's mitochondrial RNA.
No, the M stands for messenger, not mitochondria.
Okay. Well, thanks for clearing that up.
It's messenger RNA.
As far as, do he understand, like, whether, does he even know how much toxicity is in regards to that chemical that he mentioned? Does he know whether or not it's low or is it high?
Yeah, I wanted to get back. Yeah, I wanted to get back to that. I
As
just
far as
wanted to,
how much it is that would be poisonous to the body, to the human?
Wait.
In the vaccine, that's when you've seen the ingredients, did you go look and see exactly how much is too much, or is there a way to make it safe if it's in low doses, or did you just see a chemical, look it up?
Yeah, so what it is in low doses, the CDC considers it safe for vaccines. However, it's on one of those poison controllers. So it's technically a poison to the human body that in low dosages, kind of like fluoride. Fluoride is poisonous to the human body, but in low dosages, we can stand it.
Apple seeds.
Found in the water.
Okay, so earlier you said now water is toxic as well. But it's all in a matter of dosage. A lot of things are toxic and or poisonous depending on the dosage. Like me personally, I went through a bout of hypernatremia, which is water toxicity myself. I binged on a whole bunch of water for 2 weeks straight, drank too much water, and almost drowned myself internally. And so that was water that we all need to survive. And that was toxic to me in the dosage that I took it. So dosage matters. So without understanding the dosage, the claims about something being toxic or not is basically kind of standing on an island and irrelevant. So hexane. So let's talk about this ingredient that you mentioned, hexane. In order for it to be significantly part of a claim, to say, okay, I don't want to mess with the vaccine because it's in it, you first off to understand what is the dosage in a shot. So if you get a single shot or eventually 2 shots of a particular vaccine, how much of the hexane is in the dosage that you receive? And if that dosage is anywhere near the level of toxicity that will cause harm. Did you research that and know that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely not the level that will cause, I guess, acute toxicity. So over time, of course, like with fluoride, if you use it over time, constantly use it over time, it'll cause certain issues. But the fact,
it's a cumulative. Is that what you're saying?
No. So with hexane, it's not a cumulative in this vaccine. You're only getting 2 doses. So even though you're only getting 2, and I don't even know if it's in the second dose, because that's the one thing I haven't really comprehended is how they're dividing the doses up and what are in the second dose as opposed to the first dose and things like that. That's
it's the same ingredients.
You know what I mean? Oh, so if it's the same ingredients, then you're getting 2 doses basically containing that specific ingredient. And that's just one ingredient that I didn't want in my body in particular, just like I don't do fluoride.
Small amount.
Say what?
I say it's an extremely low amount.
Yeah, so it's fluoride in your drinking water, but I don't want to drink it.
We drink water every day.
Not out the faucet.
I know.
No, that's why I asked you, was it a cumulative? Because fluoride accumulates, whereas this hexane is not an accumulative thing. Does hexane stay on your body?
Now that I'm not, I didn't see too much research on how long it stays in the body. Like, how long before the body is able to pass it out of the system. I didn't research that. So I can't give you an answer on that. But that is a valid question. That's a good question.
Okay, but okay, here I guess if we fast forward, the bottom line is obviously, you have to make a decision obviously for yourself and stuff like that. And right. So if you see a list of ingredients and then you see some on that list, you see an item that's also on another list, and that other list is a list of toxic, harmful things. And based on you seeing it on both lists, you therefore make the decision, say, okay, I don't want that in my body. that's ultimately your choice, of course. But what I'm saying is that if you look at the list of the different coatings and hierarchy of toxins and stuff like that, that's out there, it all depends on dosage. Because like we just gave the example, water itself, H2O, that we need to live, period, can become toxic in a large dose. And so dosage is paramount when we bring up the term toxicity to the body and this, that, and the third. So without dosage and without knowing if the body passes it or what it's even used for, is it temporary, and so on and so forth, then that's not enough to really make a decision on at all.
It's also not enough to you're right. And if it's not enough to make a decision on it, then that's one of those things you just don't want to jump into and be like, you know what, I'll try this. It's kind of like those people who be like, oh, I don't eat pork. And then somebody cooks you a sandwich on a grill that they just fried pork with. I'm not going to eat that sandwich, even though I know it's a small amount, but it can possibly cause me to have an upset stomach or all types of other problems.
Most people make these decisions based off of whether the benefit outweighs the risk.
Right.
And I don't know if you're factoring in all the risk or the benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm factoring the risk. Once I realized, because you got to think, right? My family has been exposed to it, and that's direct family. So it's not like, third, fourth, or somebody outside the house. I've had to deal with it directly, had to help these people get over those symptoms and all of that. So yeah,
I have
definitely.
two cousins that had it too. They had, the loss of taste, not feeling good. They are right now.
Hold up. Listen, y'all are talking to a person that had COVID. I got infected and I had COVID.
Wow. So
I don't have to refer to anybody else.
Right.
I got the vaccine. I got Moderna, me personally.
Okay.
My mom got it. My 72-year-old granny got it. My wife's grandmother got it. Her grandfather got it.
My dad got it.
We all vaccinated. And
wow.
No one's had an issue. No one's had any kind of, the most somebody had was a headache, and the sore arm is the main thing.
Right.
Outside of that. And
yeah, I'm just saying. So
Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson.
Can I ask you a sidebar question? Is your arm magnetic now?
wait.
I had to ask. I don't know, but I want to know.
Wait, hold up. Before you answer that, let me ask you:
Big MAGA chip.
Is that a serious? Do you actually believe the video clips and memes that was floating around that went viral?
Well, I don't believe. That's why I'm asking somebody who had it, who's got the vaccine, whether or not that's true.
But you can smell about that though.
You know what I mean? I don't know personally. I've never seen nobody put a magnet to their arm and be like, look, it sticks. But I have seen those videos, so why not ask somebody who's actually...
All right, go ahead. Chavis, go ahead. Chavis can't talk because his arm magnetized his phone. His mute button is stuck.
Let me find a spoon real fast. Let me see if it works. Hold on, wait. I got a spoon right here. Wait. All right. Ready?
It's supposed to be a magnet, not a spoon.
Huh?
It's supposed to be a magnet, not a spoon.
Oh, well, I don't got no magnet up in here. I said the spoon ain't gonna stick. I'm gonna show you that right now.
Right.
No, but hold up, but wait. So let's quickly deal with that craziness. Listen, the whole magnetic claim is based around the lipid nanoparticles. And so what people claimed was that the lipid nanoparticles, they don't even use the word lipid. They just say nanoparticles to imply nanobots. And what it's doing is supposed to magnetize your arm, or it's supposed to be metallic to where you put a magnet up to your arm, it will stick to your arm. All that stuff was scammed and phony and fake, because it's all based on a play on the ignorance of people about lipid nanoparticles. And so the lipid nanoparticles is simply a cholesterol or like a fat encasement for the mRNA. And it has nothing to do with metal, electronics, or robots or bots or anything like that, because they take the word nano and think robots because they watch too many movies, when nano is simply a unit of measurement. It means 1/100000th. That's all the word nano means. And so this is fatty particles that are so small, it's in the 1/100000th of size. That's why they call it lipid nanoparticles. And they use the mRNA, the messenger RNA is encased in it, and that's the delivery system in order to protect it from dissolving. Once you get shot, once it enters the body, it will preserve it enough so it can reach the cells and spark the immune response and do its thing. That's it.
Yeah. See, Ghana, when you came in, when you started saying that, you know, that when you started talking about you being anti-vaccine, but then you were going to go over your reasons, you know, you kind of disappointed me a little bit, because I thought you actually had like some some valid reason, like I'm allergic to this particular ingredient or this particular ingredient, whatever it is, you know, things like that. Because all you've come up with so far is like some sci-fi kind of stuff. You know,
but these are concerns that everybody has. I'm saying, for me personally, it's just not my thing. I don't do vaccines.
Yeah, but you know, like to think, when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you're very privileged in a way that because a lot of people have gotten vaccinated, you can actually get away with not being vaccinated. You know, and that's kind of like a privilege, and it gives you that privilege to actually talk the way you talk. Because me coming from a place where you know, we've seen people go through all kinds of different you know, outbreaks, where and you have scientists like on the continent, you know, trying so hard with the little resources they have to kind of actually use the science that is being used today to come up with this kind of different solutions, like vaccines and medicine, you know, to kind of help people when all these outbreaks come out, and they do come out a lot. Like, I know you haven't had this kind of experience, probably is the first time in your lifetime, and that's why I say it's a privilege for you. And then you can talk about the way you talk, and your reasoning will actually be on a sci-fi based thing, as opposed to actually real concerns, because there are actually people who should probably not take the vaccine. And like Ujao said, it's always listed like what kind of people should not take these vaccines and for what reasons. But
Absolutely.
then, you know, so I'm just saying, like, I'm just listening, and I'm like, man, you're very, very privileged, because you can actually say, I don't want to take this vaccine because I think, and all of that is like sci-fi stuff as opposed to like real stuff. And then I'm actually, you know, knowing from where I come from, that people literally always want, because a human being wants to survive, you know,
Right.
and from where I come from, people are getting hit with different kind of outbreaks, and they want to survive, and they want their doctors and they want the government to have more resources, you know, to get everything done so they can live longer, so they can, you know, survive these outbreaks. And, you know, people really want those vaccines, because, you know, but then, you know, and they will study and they will know like what, you know, the reasons behind them, and they will never be about a conspiracy theory, because at the end, from where I'm from, the government would prefer you to die and not to live, you know. So when a vaccine comes along where it helps you, you know, fight a virus that you can't see, that is not what the government, you know, that is what people would want. So for me, on my side, I'm actually seeing that, you know, that's why I said I'm a little bit disappointed, because I actually thought you had valid reasons, you know, but it's like a night and day situation for me. So it kind of gets me a little, you know, I feel away with that, with those kind of stuff, because I've seen both, you know, both sides, like the Western part where people are very privileged and they can say, I don't want the vaccine because the government is out to get me. And then on the other side, I see people who, you know, don't have they don't have that kind of access, and they don't have that privilege to say, I don't want it, you know. But just to make it, you know, just to finish up, just remember that you also talking in that point is like, you have that privilege as well, because other people have taken that vaccine. So it makes it a little bit safer for you, as opposed to if everybody didn't want to, you know, take the vaccine. So you know, so you can say that because other people have already taken that step to get the vaccine.
Right. Well, yeah, there's definitely privilege there. That's one of the things that I can say I'm glad for. That is, I do have the privilege to say, no, I don't want to take this. or I don't feel comfortable taking this and things like that. But my choice was based on living as well too. Me personally, like I said, everybody in my house just about got it except, and my girls, two of my girls didn't, but they couldn't. They are exempt from getting the vaccine because of their health conditions. So nobody in my house has to take the vaccine because of their medical history at this point. I would be the only one, but I haven't had any problems or any issues with any health issue. I haven't had any health issues besides getting crushed by over 1,300 pounds in the past 20 years, and broken bones and things like that. So for me to just start putting things in my body that I am not comfortable with, I wouldn't do that. And the whole purpose for this conversation is just to open it up and get some of the truth out there and for people to make their own choices based on the information presented. So I get it, but
But
me
it seems
personally,
like you
it's just
coming from like a position of like omission bias. I mean, do you feel like
yeah, I definitely. I'll be the first one to tell you I have mission bias. For real, I do. I'm not even gonna lie to you. A lot of it was bias. I didn't like the way the whole situation came down. The whole event 201 and the Gates family involvement in this whole situation, the whole scenario. It kind of turned.
Can I ask you if you wear a mask?
Depending on where I'm working at, I never really wore the mask too much either.
Well, do you ever think about you're putting your family in a vulnerable position with them being immunocompromised?
Well, that's the thing.
Extremely susceptible.
No, we work very closely with my doctors, and I've been in the cleaning business for a while anyway. So I've been dealing around germs, and I worked in medical offices and things like that. So I know certain ways to keep myself from, getting certain things at certain points. Not that I'm is immune from it, you know what I mean? And my practices are the best of all, but I'm in a position where I can actually keep myself out of that. Most of the time I'm working by myself anyway. My contracts, I have keys and security.
Are you tested regularly?
Tested regularly? No.
Yeah.
No. I have been tested.
So how would you be aware of whether you have an asymptomatic infection or something?
Yeah, I don't test. I haven't tested regularly. I've tested though, but if I'm going to test, it's usually going to be after I was exposed. I'm around somebody who may have had it. That was my reasoning for getting tested before. Somebody who was around somebody within my family got sick, so we all went and got tested. But prior to that, I wasn't around enough people to even.
But I think the point, because I want to kind of somehow get a little wrap up here. But I think the point that Chavis is making is that let's say you are a pretty healthy person that has a robust immune system and in such a way that if you were to be infected, you would be an asymptomatic case. You wouldn't know it.
Right.
And so by way of you being infected, you could shed and pass it on to somebody else, although you yourself may not show signs or symptoms and whatnot. And so that was the question. Do you realize?
So my complete answer to that is I do think about that. And here's the thing on that and with the mask in general. So the infection zone is 25 to 35 feet, something like that, as far as a sneeze or a cough, where it's injected into the air. And correct me if I'm wrong. So
really, it's even if in talking, you talk, it spread. It's not necessarily
right. So the spread zone is much further than the 6 feet or what the masks do. And then if just wearing a mask in general isn't going to stop if it's something that's on, happens to get on your clothing and things like that, because it's not like we're passing it through our sweat. This is something that is passed through, the sneezing or coughing or things like that, where it's injected into the air.
Your nose, your mouth.
Well, hold up. Wait. So let's understand this. The virus enters the body through the mucosal linings of the eyes, nose, or mouth.
Right, absolutely.
So when it gets on your skin or clothes or whatever, you would have to actually touch it and then rub your eyes, mess with your nose, or deal with your mouth or whatever the case is. Those are the high spots of entry point. And so regardless of if the zone is 30 feet or whatever the case is, you dramatically reduce the chances, because all this is a matter of numbers, the probability numbers of infection and the chances. And so, the whole thing about wearing the mask and 6 feet social distancing is to cut down on how the virus is transmitted, on the transmission of the virus. That's really the bottom line. And so that a virus only has a certain shelf life before it dies out, unless it replicate itself through a host.
Right.
And so
that's COVID is what, 24 hours, 12 to 24 hours, something like that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So the whole mask and social distancing concept altogether, like overall, is an epidemiological thing. It's a thing for population health, not individual health, because once you can slow the transmission of a virus down, then it starts to reduce itself within the population, and it lowers the numbers of chances of transmission. And so if everybody played their part, even if a person personally doesn't think one way or the other, but if everybody played their part, then in the big picture of the population wise, the virus load in the population would be tremendously reduced to the point where we wouldn't even be in this situation right now. So the whole question about people wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, a lot of the answers given to the reasons why people don't or whatever, it has nothing to do with that bigger picture epidemiological concept of why it was recommended in the first place. It has nothing to do with that. It always comes back to
personal reasons.
Huh?
It ends up being a personal reason at the end of the day.
Yeah, it'll be
psychology. They call it health belief. There's a thing called health belief model. Look it up. It explains all the psychology behind how a person formulates their belief. Those beliefs they are correlated with the behavior. So this is why you have these feelings and you behave in that way. So it's psychological too.
Exactly. And it goes all the way back to Emiket's question about where the psychology what role does psychology play in health. And now I'm trying to close this session out now, but we probably bring this up again. It's a big thing, and I was trying to allude to that. Is psychology plays a role in everything, because the way we think is like the mirror, the underside of how we behave. Like a man, as a man thinketh, so is he type of saying applies in that sense. So we behave based on our thoughts, how we think. Then our behavior, our actual execution of behavior, is what puts us in harm's way or not, dealing with health, external health, like physiological health, because of what we do, how our risk muscle, like how much risk are we willing to take? And everybody's risk muscle may be a little different. Some people will take a chance where other people won't. Like you got people who will not get in a car if they're not driving, because they don't want to take a risk or a chance at other drivers, even though they drive real good. They don't know about how other people drive. So everybody got a different risk muscle. And so psychology plays a big part. And lastly, to tie it back into Kemet, which is what we try to do, since we're on this channel, in the medical papyri, you'll find people always talk about spells that was put along with the actual remedies and cures and things like that. And people always question the spells, like what's up with that part? Like I understand, this herb or this chemical will treat this or that, but what about the spell? What about this magical spell and stuff like that? And so I want to get into that next time, not now, not tonight, but get into that next time. But just to throw this out there, it has everything to do with, or some things to do with, how we deal with today on the psychological side, that will anchor and dictate or kind of curve behavior. Because remember, health is a lifestyle. It's not a thing that we get into. Every moment of our life is directly connected to our health, because our bodies is at a 24/7 machine that is constantly defending off of enemies and things like that that we ingest and digest on a daily basis from our surroundings. We know we're born in this world. It's not a sterile world, and there are things out here every day that will do us harm had it not been for our internal machinery to be able to offset that. It's always a race against time, and depending on our behavior, we're supposed to stay within a range of a healthy behavior that's conducive for our body to be able to handle these things. But when we breach that threshold and start behaving and doing things that will put us at harm risk for enemies where our bodies don't have the time to handle it, then we get into a disease that's perpetual, and it leads us up to a shorter life or even death. And so anyway, I just want to say that in a summary way that we can revisit that and talk about that. But this is an important topic to talk about every now and then, because health is everything.
I agree.
Health is life. Life is health. And the state of our health at any given moment is a combination of many things, but two major things is the availability of your body having resources, which is by way of nutrients and all the nutrients that your body needs as a resource to perform its job. And then on the other side, your behavior and what you put yourself in harm's way and things like that. It's always a race against time. All right, but anyway, so I want to kind of close this out. But I want to give anybody a chance to give any closing statements or whatever the case is before I shut it down.
Yeah, I didn't even get to bring out my topic, but it's all good.
Oh yeah, we could. Hey, but pin it so we could bring it up next time. First, we bring it up first.
Yeah, but just to ask real quick, knowing what the kind of advances the remote had with this, you think that you'd find anti-vaxxers, in ancient Kemet?
Nate, your mic was giving some noise. Can you say it again?
Oh, okay. I was saying that knowing all the advancements that the remote had or did with in regards to medicine, do you think they would be heavily anti-vaxxers?
No, I can say based on the behavioral pattern of them as a whole and looking at how they looked at medicine and all of that stuff, I could definitely say no. My thought, my conclusion would be no. They would not be anti-vax. In fact, they would look at vaccines as a tremendous breakthrough to aid. See, to aid what is in a natural flow. Because you gotta understand this. All right, let me just tell you, just as an example. Remember that the ancient Egyptians relied heavily on the Nile River, and the Nile River was the lifeblood of the civilization. If it wasn't for the behavior of the Nile flooding and then retreating, for them to have an agricultural society and so on and so forth, Egypt would not be Egypt. It would just not exist. We wouldn't be talking about it. But at the same time of that natural behavior of the Nile, they artificially created man-made channels and irrigation things, ports and stuff, to take advantage of what took place naturally. And so just as the body naturally does things, they would invent and love to do things created from themselves to aid in that natural or to segue off of that natural process to improve upon it or to utilize it. And so health and things like that is no different. And that's the spirit behind vaccines today. Our body has a natural defense called our immune system. Our immune system is broken down into components. We have the two major components, the innate and the adaptive immune systems. And then immunity can be achieved by way of adaptive immune system producing antibodies, or you getting antibodies from a surrogate through passive immunity. So that's what some people will say, you got three forms of immune systems, but you only have two systems, but three ways to deal with immunity or deal with pathogens. And so vaccines is our way of aiding a natural process by training the adaptive immune system to see an enemy prior to engaging the enemy for the first time, which will tremendously shorten the amount of time it takes to mount a defense and to prevail. Because remember what I said earlier, everything about health and the immune system is time related, it's time sensitive. That's what it's all about. There are pathogens that are slow at what it does, and our immune system can outpace it and prevail. But then there are deadly pathogens, and what makes them deadly is the speed in which it does damage in the body. It outpaces our natural immune system's ability to defend. And that's where vaccines are very important, because it buys us time. It buys the body time to do what it does best. That's it. And so the ancient Egyptians, and I'm only speaking, obviously they didn't have vaccines and stuff like that. I'm speaking in a what if, based on what we can observe in their behavior. The Egyptians, ancient Egyptians would love to deal with this idea about vaccines, the whole concept of vaccinations. They would love it.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, that they probably would even have a deity for the antigen and things like that,
So you would think that they would go for a vaccine as opposed to the old ways of inoculation using the blood plasma, basically the old plasma way. Somebody gets a disease, everybody gets a little bit of their plasma.
No, well, I mean, that's wrapped up in the concept. See, the concept is to educate the immune system. So how you do it is a different, that's a separate conversation. How you,
because I think that's kind of what leads me to is that if it was a situation where they were to take the plasma from people who had it and they were to come up with a vaccine from the plasma, then maybe I probably would be one of those guys who was a little bit more comfortable receiving it, because then I know that I'm actually receiving a damaged version of, or a damaged strain of that, and that how that works as far as helping the immune system fight and recognize that type of pathogen.
So
yeah, but hold up, but wait a minute. So okay, so here's the thing. In order to get plasma, okay, the purpose of getting plasma, if you're gonna even bring that up, is to get, the goal of it is to get antibodies.
Right.
So and you kind of mentioned what it sounds like you're mentioning is the
monoclonal. It sounds like
yeah, that, but also traditional vaccines that had either a attenuated form of the actual pathogen itself, or a weakened form, or whatever,
right,
of the vaccine, of the virus or pathogen itself.
Right.
Well,
those are the vaccines I'm more familiar with, and I have a little bit.
Most people are, because that's what's been traditionally used.
They don't work that good.
But now hold up. But here's the thing: the mRNA delivery method is superior to that, because one, it does not inject you with the virus or the pathogen at all. It doesn't deal with the pathogen at all. So not even a weakened portion of it, or none of that stuff. You don't have to use any form of the enemy itself at all. So that's one of the breakthroughs about mRNA, the mRNA technology.
But check this out. Oh, sorry, Travis, go ahead.
No, I just said he should probably look into Johnson & Johnson. If you look into anything close, it's not the same, but it's similar to that concept, but it's a little bit more technologically advanced, because they're using adenovirus. They're not using an adenovirus is harmless. So, I mean,
what do you mean by an adenovirus? Can you clarify that a little?
An adenovirus, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine uses the adenovirus as the delivery system. It's
So it uses another virus to deliver the virus. That's kind of crazy.
No, you just said.
No, I mean just the
they
fact that
inactivate it and they
a
give it
virus.
the mRNA of the what's called of the SARS-CoV-2, and it does basically the same thing as these third generation. It's just not the same because they're using an adenovirus, which you look it up is a cold virus. It's harmless.
But back to Emiket's question, because I'm trying to close out, is that I strongly feel that the ancient Egyptians had they, I mean, man, if they were to snapshot into the present situation right now, they would welcome the mRNA, lipid particle and all that. They would welcome all that good stuff.
Yeah, but
just looking at the way that things were handled, and that we can actually witness and see in the documentation that we can actually read of how they handled things. They even see the ancient Egyptians knew of pathogens, but they could never directly observe them. And so they knew that there was unseen things causing adverse effects on that which we can see and observe. They just could never directly observe the pathogens themselves like we can today with microscopes and electron microscopes and all that kind of stuff. They didn't have the tools to witness them directly, but they knew that they exist by way of the outcome and effect of it. So they had a deity, Sekhmet, who was the patroness deity over all medical physicians that dealt with that. So if you're interested, if anybody's interested and want to know how they perceived, medicine and health and stuff like that, that's one place to start. Anything dealing with Sekhmet, the female lioness head deity, and what's called a Sanu, which is the word for medical doctor or physician in ancient Egypt. You look at all the medical papyri, they were creating ways to treat conditions that were caused by unseen pathogens, although they couldn't witness the pathogens. So vaccines would have been their number one goal.
But listening to Ghana, and correct me if I'm wrong, both Ghana and Sibawujao, because I'm not like, I don't sit and study things about the vaccine and the immune system heavily or anything like that. I just know enough to have an informed opinion, But from what you talked about, since we started out, you mentioned two things that are key to understanding this, which was time and education, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so when we're talking about, because you brought in in the plasma, and from what I'm understanding, is that what the plasma does and what the new kind of vaccines do is the part of education. Is that correct, Spujao? Is educating the immune system.
Oh, yeah. In a sense, it does the same. The concept is the same.
Right. So, but it's just that one of those is actually more advanced. Obviously, it being a new invention is more advanced. So, and I realized when you were talking about the amount of time it took, and that to come up with this vaccine. So which like it's 2021, so people would be advanced. It won't take it will not be taking too long. So that's that. You got to put the when you're talking about that, you have to put in mind that technology is advanced, so it's not going to take way too long. And then on top of that, it's a race against time. So people are going to put all their heads together, all the different institutions together to come up with something, because a lot of people are being infected at a higher rate and a faster rate. So it will take, so you have to, logically, you have to understand why it will take a shorter time based on technology and based on the urgency. So that should not be something that should be suspect in your head in any given way. But then when you're talking about also you don't trust this, but you prefer the plasma, you have to understand that all of that are actually systems of educating the immune system, but one is just advanced. And also you have to put in mind that it's advanced because of technology and, like we are in 2021. So basically you're not really anti-vaccine, you just have a preference.
Yeah,
of which one.
That's a closer analogy. But I put myself in that category because some of those same sentiments, as you heard earlier, I hold. even though that's just my personal opinion.
Okay, let me say this, and I really want to shut it down. But I want everybody to understand this, that bringing up plasma treatment in a conversation about vaccines, we have to understand that they're two totally different things. The vaccines have a prophylactic element to it, whereas the plasma treatment does not. The plasma stuff is a treatment to people who get infected and are suffering from COVID-19, whereas the vaccine is a preventative measure. So these are
now, there was a time when these that type of inoculation was the prophylactic method.
Yeah, but it wasn't as successful as vaccines, which is why vaccines prevail over that method now. But this is what I'm saying now is that I just want to make that clear distinction, even though it's okay to talk about both, but I want to make sure that we're not confusing people into thinking that one is in the same category as the other. They're not.
Okay.
So now the vaccines, like I said, is a preventive thing. It trains the immune system to prevent from even being infected to the point where you catch a disease. You get into the condition of having clinical COVID-19 disease and need to be hospitalized or whatever the case is, and even die. So that's a preventive. The antibodies that are received through plasma and stuff like that is a treatment to actually aid and speed up the process of your own antibodies production, or for people who can't produce those antibodies at all or fast enough. So in a case like you described with your wife, it seems to fit that description. Anybody who's immunocompromised may not be able to produce those antibodies.
And the funny thing about it, though, since you mentioned that, is that she would have been a perfect candidate for it, but her immune system was too weak. But it's because she can't produce the antibodies that her immune system is compromised. She literally can't produce certain antibodies at all.
Okay, and that's right. And so we got to make that clear that that's a totally different thing. So the treatment is necessary, because if your wife is an example of a person who cannot produce those antibodies, then even if receiving the vaccine that will train the body to produce the spike protein for the body to in turn produce the antibody against it, and your wife can't produce the antibody at all, then it seems like it makes no sense to do it.
Right.
Which is what you're saying is your wife's situation, and that's understood. So it's a case by case thing as far as that goes. But at the end of the day, vaccine technology as a whole is a tremendous leap forward in our continuous fight against nature and nature versus man, because pathogens, this world is big, the earth is big. Pathogens exist out there in the form of bacteria, viruses, and other things that are not very friendly to us. And we exist here, and we got to occupy the same space at the same time. Sometimes somebody's going to fall. Somebody's going to give in. Somebody got to lay down to get down type of situation. And so we need everything we can to ensure our continued existence. And so vaccines is a brilliant invention and technology, period. And so for people to demonize it without studying it or even knowing about it, to me, it's just crazy. And that's why when Emeka asked the question about the ancient Egyptians, we won't know for sure, obviously, because they're not here. But I'm saying if we were to base a conclusion on what we can see and read about what they felt about all this kinds of things, that's why my answer is what it is, that they would welcome vaccine technology, the concept itself, especially mRNA technology, where you got messenger RNA to allow your own body to produce the enemy, a portion of the enemy that will cause your body to in turn build up soldiers to fight against it prior to you even coming in contact with the enemy. I mean, come on, that's genius.
So the plasma is that comes in after the fact, after the infection, as opposed to the vaccine, right?
Say it again.
The plasma treatment.
Well, that's how they're using it now.
After contracting the virus, as opposed to the vaccine, which is preparing you.
Right. So right now they're using the plasma as a treatment, as an alternative treatment, or one of the types of treatment, because there's several different types of treatment, but that's one of the treatments that they're using for people who have, like you said, have contracted the virus and gotten ill from it.
Okay, so I understand why Wujao said, and from earlier on, why he said that you can't really compare the two, because, or put the two in the same sentence, which would be like, because one is the vaccine does something different. It's not, you don't take the vaccine after contract, like to kind of, it's not a treatment for contracting COVID, as opposed to the plasma, I guess. So
exactly.
it makes sense to me. Yeah.
Right. And we got to understand, statistically and based on the data, vaccines definitely outperform plasma treatment, hands down. So we got the brother Sean actually put in some of the stats in the chat. But vaccinations is outperforming everything else. There's over how many people in the United States? Let me look it up real quick. How many people in the United States are fully vaccinated? I'm just gonna pull it up. I got this stuff.
While you pull it up, I'm going to say, like, so Ghana, if you look at it this way, would you want to have an alarm system that helps you after you get robbed, or you want one to help you so you don't get robbed?
Yeah, right. That's right, and that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying before. You don't like with the fire thing. You want fire prevention rather than fire reaction. And if you are in a situation where you can't prevent it and it actually happens, you want a fast response. And what better way to fast a response than to train your own family members on how to put out a daggone fire by fire extinguishers and whatever else needs to be done. So you don't have to rely on the fire department coming to your house. And if they do come to your house, it's just extra gravy on the situation than relying 100% on that. And that's what it really boils down to in a layman's way, using that analogy. But real quick, around 150 million people in the United States. We're talking the United States. 150 million people in the United States have been fully vaccinated. In the world is 748 million in the whole world. So only 9.6% of the world's population is fully vaccinated. But the United States is almost half. It's 45.4% of the population of the United States has been fully vaccinated. Now, in terms of single doses, 317 million single doses have been given, and some of those single doses have been single doses in the same person. So we can't say that 317 million people have received single doses, because those are just single doses counts. So the number to use is 150 million people fully vaccinated, which is almost half. So we haven't reached herd immunity, and that's another concept we could talk about, herd immunity, because I think people get that twisted and confused as well. But listen, it's way past time to start this week off, get some rest for everybody. So listen, I hope everybody had a nice Father's Day for all the fathers out there. Hope everybody's making informed decisions, staying safe, and just being responsible.
Yeah.
Say it again. Oh, happy Father's Day. Appreciate it.
Yeah. The rest of y'all. Happy Father's
Day. My thing with this whole thing is even people are, for whatever their own reasons are, because we can get into the reasons, but people who are for or against being vaccinated, or whatever the case is, from wearing masks, from the social distancing, from the trying to stay away from crowds, all the way to the vaccine, my hope is that people are making educated and informed decisions, one, and two, just being responsible. Even if you think you're okay, be responsible enough for the people who are not okay, for the vulnerable in our communities, because you got people who are not as strong and robust with their health. They may have a history of abusing themselves, where their immune system is compromised in some form or fashion. They may have underlying conditions from things in the past. We have to take all that in consideration. just because we could be 100% healthy, vegetarian, vegans, athletic and the whole nine, we still got to be responsible for the weaker or more vulnerable among us. Same way in a household. Usually the husband man or whatever, the oldest man in the house is responsible for protecting the women and children and everything like that. Why? Because conceptually, that's the vulnerable. The children are vulnerable. And so if something happens in the household, the man protects the vulnerable. Even though the man may be okay himself, he may be able to hold his own, but he still has to be responsible and protect the vulnerable. And that's how we should see the extended family, called communities and group populations, where the strong among the population still have to look out for the vulnerable and just be responsible. Wear the mask to not transmit, slow down transmission, all that good stuff. So that's what I've been advocating for over a year, in the midst of all this crazy noise and conspiracy theories and quackery and pseudoism. It's just really, really out of hand. I know people who have passed away. I myself have got infected, had COVID-19. I was fortunate enough to have what's considered a mild experience with it. So I went through unwantingly. I got infected and went through built up a natural immunity, producing antibodies that way. But vaccine, as a preventive or prophylactic element, is definitely preferred. If I had, to do, prior to being, I don't wish nobody to get infected. I don't care if you're healthy or not, because here's the thing. Here's the catch too. There are people who are saying, "Oh, you don't know the long-term effects of the vaccine, so I'm not taking that experiment. I'm not being a guinea pig and taking no experimental vaccines." Well, guess what? If that's true, then it's also true that we don't know the long-term effects of SARS-CoV-2 infection. So it's like, are you going to take a chance with not knowing what the virus does long-term, or not knowing what the vaccine does long-term? Which one is more controlled? Which one is more studied? Which one is more regulated? Which one has been through the trial by fire?
Like they're trying to say the virus has more benefits.
That's where the time comes in for me. But I definitely get the point.
Yeah, and so that's
there's long-term COVID. There's brain damage that we got data on a lot of effects from just the virus alone.
Brain damage, lung damage.
Yes.
All types of
I
damage.
don't see that being beneficial.
Yes,
No.
and that's what I'm saying. People are not even considering that in the claim. Like, people are just making claims just out the blue. They're just saying, they just jumping on the bandwagon of parroting these catchphrases. Oh, it's experimental. That's why I asked, even before everybody jumped on, I asked a question about the FDA, because people say, oh, it's not even approved. It's only been authorized. And I just asked this question to people that do that. I say, what agency is responsible for the authorization? They say FDA. Well, what agency is responsible for the approval? FDA. Well, if the same agency is gonna have say so on whether it's approved or authorized, then the issue of approved and authorized is not what you think. So, it forces people to look into the difference of what it means to be authorized and why, and what it means to be approved and why. What's the real difference? Because people are using that way out of context. They're saying that it's only authorized as if to imply that something is wrong, and all
that it's authorized because it's an emergency, because it's a pandemic globally. So that's why it's authorized, because there is an emergency, and we should be more mindful of it and stop minimizing it like it's nothing. It's not just here, it's global. It's a big problem. It's not gonna go away.
Right. And so, but hey, check this out. Like, because I had these conversations many times, right? And what people are unaware of is the one of the differences is what you said, and another difference between the two is that given an emergency use authorization also allows for other things to take place. It frees up a budgeting process as well. It
That's
allows,
another one. Nobody talked about that. You're right.
yeah, it allows, it's the equivalent of a governor declaring a natural disaster in the state, which will therefore trigger the unlocking of federal funds to do X, Y, and Z. But had the governor not declared a natural disaster in a state, those funds will still be locked and whatnot. So the disaster itself never changes. It's just that you declare it for certain reasons to get certain things done. So the emergency use, like you said, is because we're in a state of emergency with it being a global pandemic. But it also allows cooperation and priority given to this endeavor, and it frees up funding and resources to get things done. That's the bottom line. The full approval process is a different, pathway for these vaccines to do. And if they would have waited for that, man, we still be in trouble. And that's a part of the discussion that people do not talk about. And what's going to happen when Moderna and Pfizer actually get the approval, because they filed for it, and it's just a matter of going through the red tape and all the checks and balances, and once they are approved, then what? Then
People gonna move the goalpost. That's what's gonna happen. They're gonna move the goalpost and find something else.
Man, they're not gonna move the goalpost. They're gonna switch football. They're gonna switch fields. They're gonna switch from football to baseball. All right, listen, I'm gonna say peace. I appreciate everybody tuning in and joining the panel. And we've been having these open discussions about things. Tonight, I kind of kicked it off on the health tip, which led to this conversation, which is cool. But usually we try to anchor things into all things Kemet or whatever the case is. And if we were to stay on long enough, I can anchor a lot more things into Kemet, even what we're talking about with vaccine, pathogens, treat sicknesses, how they deify certain things, how how they deal with the spirits, and spirits are supposed to be the causal agents of
but I got a good question. So did they actually is that what they called the Egyptians actually called it deification, just that term in general?
No, I mean they didn't. I mean we refer to the process as deification, which is really a bump up of importance. To deify something is to take something and make it really important. That's what deifying actually functionally means. It means, like, when you deify a person, you take that person and then you elevate to a level of high importance.
Well, I meant in the general, in the sense that the layman would have, not just the general sense. So, but thank you for that.
Yeah. So deification. Remember, the Egyptians deified many things that they saw as important. They deified perception. They deified eloquent speech. They deified science. They deified the ability to bring things from thought all the way to tangible fruition. They deified change, called evolution. So they deified a lot of things of importance to them. They deified the Nile River. That was extremely important to them. They deified many things. All right, so listen, man. Yeah, Sean is right. If I don't end the show, I'm gonna keep on going. I got this bad habit of long goodbyes that I learned from Emicat. I'm blaming on Emicat.
Yeah, sure.
Blame it on your 13%.
All right, so I'm gonna say Shem Hotep, man. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I hope everybody had a good Father's Day. Stay safe and actually do science. Don't talk about science. Do it.